fat fried. Deep 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 fat fried.
Welcome to Deep Fart. Fuck! I fucked it up.
All right, start it from the
God
top.
damn it! All right,
roll the cartoon.
all right, hold on.
Roll the cartoon
Sorry, I
again.
fucked
Dude,
it
why don't you do a classic DFF intro, dude?
Yeah, give him that old classic
The old
shit,
classic
DJ.
Deep fat fried.
Well, what's your introduction for this episode? You did the research. What's your introduction?
Welcome to Deep Fart. God damn it!
God damn it, TJ.
Fuck!
What are we paying you for, man?
I don't know.
Deep fat fried. Say it with me. Deep,
fat,
fried.
fried.
Okay?
Deep
Can we give it
fart
one more
fri-
time?
Shit!
One
Deep
more
fart
time.
fried.
Roll the
Ding,
old
ding,
school
ding, ding,
intro.
ding, ding.
All right.
It didn't show on the main screen.
Oh, right, because I'm still showing the Patreon.
Good fucking job.
Damn it. All right,
Do
all
it
right,
again.
all
Do
right,
it again,
one more time.
TJ.
Deep fat fried.
Hey, everybody! Welcome to Deep Fat Fried.
He got there.
Yay!
He got there.
Believe in yourself and anything is possible, TJ.
We got a Patreon.
We sure do.
You ever notice that?
We're climbing the charts, too. You notice
Climbing
that?
them charts.
Climbing.
Scotty told me today we're number 93 in the world.
Yeah,
And
someone,
as we climb
someone
the
brought that to
charts,
my
new
attention. I was like,
enemies
wow.
form.
I didn't know we were that high up. That's
Wow,
pretty cool.
man. We're
Yeah,
just climbing the
93.
charts.
Thanks to the people.
Pretty soon we're going to be in the 80s, the best decade.
Oh, yeah, dude. And then it really gets crazy.
Then we're going to be in the 70s when murder was legal.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Then we're going to be in the 60s when LSD was legal.
Dude, that's cool.
Then we're going to be in the 50s when black people weren't legal.
And beating your spouse was legal?
Yeah.
Divorce also illegal? Good
And pretty
times.
soon we're going to get to number one.
What is that? The year Jesus was born?
I don't know.
1 AD? Is that where we're headed? Oh,
Yeah,
God.
dude, we're heading to one.
Oh, God.
I thought you
man.
since you were bringing up the 60s, we're going to talk about what came out of the 60s, TJ.
Yeah, something that
Some-
was born
some
from
show.
the 60s.
Was belched from the cunt of the 60s.
Is that when Deep Fat Fried started?
I wish. I wish we've been doing this since the 60s.
There's always been a deep fat fried, TJ. You know this.
Yeah.
You've heard Tomat and his whisperings at night.
That's true.
That's
I have heard
Paul,
the
that's
call
heresy.
of
We don't-
Toad.
we-
there has been a deep fat
Paul, we don't talk about that, man.
Always.
Senor Tomat does not speak for the show, dude.
Always has
Let's
there
see.
been.
Let's see if we're number one yet. Because when we started this promotion, we had 3,697, but I'm sure it's increased since then.
Oh, yeah, dude, for sure.
Yes!
Yes!
Boom, motherfucker!
That's what I'm talking about.
As you guys know, when we hit our goal is 4,000, we're going to get a studio. We already have some ideas.
We're going to get a studio. It's going to be probably like sort of like Universal Studios in Hollywood. Or
Except
yeah.
we're the only ones that get
Yeah.
to go on the rides.
Yeah. Except we're, I mean, when
The
we
best
said
part
studio,
about
did
Deep
you guys
Fat
think
Fried
we meant
Land
a
is
new place
you
to
can't
shoot?
go.
We meant a theme park. We're going to have rides of movies that you never think there'd be rides of.
Yeah.
Like what?
There's going to be like a Mulholland Drive ride.
Yeah, a
It's gonna be
Pumpkinhead
fucking
roller
crazy.
coaster.
Dude, how about a Twister ride? Oh, wait, they made that a ride. It fucking sucks, dude.
Yeah, I would
Have
never
you
make
ever-
a Twister
Have you ever
ride.
gone on the Twister ride, dude?
You told
I've
me
heard
about it
about
after
the
you
Twister
got
Dude,
ride.
so I was like, okay, I'm assuming you're going to be spinning it or something. Like, it's going to be like a spin-around
You would wanna
ride.
be spun on the Twister
Yeah,
ride.
it's a walk-through fucking thing with this bad VHS that's degraded. So it's like the Twister, the power of the Twister, available on DVD now or some shit. And then it's like you walk into a room and it's like, here are the effects of the fabled Twister. Some crappy fire that's like not impressive at all. A little bit of water splashes your neck. And it's like, look at it, the wind, the power of the twister. They build it up, and it's all just this lame room with a bunch of fucking fat people from other countries and shit are like, watch this. And then you realize you've wasted 45 minutes on your life.
That sucks.
On something totally unimpressive. I mean, it's gone now. I think they got rid of it, but...
Good. That doesn't sound like the kind of ride that we're going to have at the new studio.
Dude,
No way, dude.
We're going to have that ride, though. That's all we can
way.
afford. Let's be honest.
No, dude. We're not going to have that.
Oh, dude, I'm going to build like a Matterhorn-style roller coaster, but with Pumpkinhead as the antagonist.
Oh, man, dude, you had to bring up the Matterhorn, dude. I've never been on that fucking ride.
Oh.
And then I got a fast pass when I was in California. I'm like, I'm going to fucking go on it. It's fine.
You didn't go?
No, dude, it's
Scotty.
great. Guess what happened?
What?
The ride broke down.
What?
I kid you not. I go with my fast pass, and it's like, we are sorry, sir. This attraction is closed for this time temporarily.
So we want to give a quick shout out to our fans.
To R2D2?
No, our fans in the path of Hurricane Florence and shit.
This is less of a shout out and more of a if you live anywhere from a northeastern Florida
they already
to
know
like
that,
Virginia,
hopefully.
get the fuck out.
Yeah. Get the fuck out.
You're about to have a giant storm.
But
Well, people from Florida probably ain't gonna leave, but I'll tell you what, in that radius, that zone right there, you should fucking leave.
well, you don't know where this is gonna fucking swing too. I saw
if
the
it,
radius.
if it follows
on the-
this path.
Yeah, if it follows this path, but Florida's right in the fucking crosshairs.
Oh, it
too,
could get hit
especially
badly.
northeast.
Dude,
Florida
nothing's
there.
off the table yet until it hits.
So if you're in anywhere in this zone, you need to get the fuck out. Get inland. Go
We
to
went
a
through
fucking hospital.
Katrina, which made a landfall at a 3, which this will probably make a landfall at a 3 or 4. And
I mean, they didn't think it was going to
devastating.
strengthen, but it actually strengthened today from a 2 to a 4.
now they don't have the same elevation problem, so I
They
don't
said
think
it
it'll
could
be
be
as bad.
approaching a Category 5 by the time it reaches
But
land,
I'm sure it's
so.
going to inundate the coastland with all the storms.
So to all these people in like North and South Carolina and Virginia, both the Virginias,
Yeah.
you guys probably want to like prepare.
Let's be honest, though,
and
dude.
if you're on the coast, you want to get the fuck
when
up
you're in
out
an
of there.
area where this shit's threatening you, because like last week they thought a hurricane was going to hit our area, it was like Gordon or something.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about this shit nonstop, so the people in these areas know.
Yeah, I know they already know. That's why I
Yeah.
just kind of wanted to say, we feel your pain.
We feel your fucking pain.
Hope everything works out. Hope you get out safe and sound. Hope you get all your friends and family.
Plus, you got to remember, a bunch of our fans are like recluses who probably don't even know what the fuck is going
Yeah.
on.
So this may
This
be
might be
the first
breaking
time they're
news
hearing
for
of it.
some of them. Like,
Yeah, if
oh
you're in this
shit!
in these
Yeah.
areas,
They've just been playing Fortnite like for 6 weeks
This is gonna
straight.
suck
You
for
know what I
you.
mean?
And they're like, oh
they're
shit,
like,
that
what?
might knock
Wait a
out my
minute.
Fortnite connection.
Did they say Virginia? Don't I live in Virginia? Oh shit!
it's going to do a lot more than knock out your Fortnite connection. It's going to
Well.
do a lot fucking more. I promise you that.
Yeah, this looks like a nasty one. So
Yep. So just wanted to give a shout out to those people.
looks like a big dildo just about
Yeah.
to fuck America
It
right
does,
up the
dude.
ass.
Dude, it's God's fucking raging hard on.
Yeah,
it.
dude.
Fuck America. in
It's
its
like,
ass.
here's how big the dildo could be.
Well, remember, all the fucking pastors always say after this shit hits, they're like, this was judgment from God for the sins of the people who lived in this area, who allowed gay marriage.
Oh shit.
Just a big vibrator that we're about to be sodomized with. Yeah, if you're at the tip of the vibrator, get the fuck out.
Yeah, if you're right.
This
in
is what
area
happens to your
here-
nation when you
Go-
allow
get out of
abortion
there.
and gay marriage.
Yeah, I agree. Or if you don't, because it would have happened either way. But whatever.
I mean, sure, but, that's part of the narrative. Also, give me a Learjet.
So this is an episode about Star Trek races. So I thought we'd start with this novel, The Great Starship Race. It's a pocket original series novel, number 67 in the numbered series. written
Wow.
by Diane
This is already
Perry.
the nerdiest episode that we've ever done.
So we're going to start with the Great
So,
Starship
yeah,
Race.
It's
Number
Yeah, we're gonna
67.
cover all of the
TJ.
all of the starship races that ever took place in any sort of
TJ,
Star Trek lore.
TJ,
We're going to tell you
pardon me.
who won and what
pardon me.
happened during the course of
Pardon
the
me.
race.
Might I interject, sir?
Yes,
Sir,
what's
might I
up?
interject? Excuse me, I want to interject, TJ. I
Yes.
believe it's actually issue 67.
Nope.
What does it say?
It says, it's 67. Did I not say 67?
I thought you said something else. Okay, I'm just checking.
I might have said 68.
I was cross-referencing that as well. I was just making
Just
sure
want to make sure, TJ, that you're
that
having
you
your
are.
facts correct.
We're here to keep you honest tonight
Thank you.
about Star Trek,
you may
because
pr-
if
you may
there's one
proceed,
thing that
TJ.
we know, it's Star
You may
Trek.
proceed, TJ.
So,
you'll
anyway.
be fact-checked the entire episode.
So we're going to
then.
talk about how many races have happened, huh?
Yeah, all the different ship races that have happened in
Uh-huh.
Star Trek lore. You know, this being one of the first ones canonically.
Oh, okay.
So it's like William Shatner and like Christopher Lloyd, dude.
Yeah.
Is that Christopher Lloyd?
When this baby hits Warp 88, you're going to see some serious shit. Okay, so yeah, obviously this is not an episode about various starship races. This is an episode about various races that exist within Star Trek. I made it...
Dude, this map is fucking sweet, dude. I've
And
never
you know
actually
what,
seen
dude?
it represented as a map.
This actually puts a lot of things into perspective, too.
It does.
The United Federation of Planets looks more like a big gobbling amoeba trying to divide everybody if you look at it from this level. You know what I mean?
None of these maps that exist are absolutely canonical. In
Sure.
fact, there's some pretty crazily different ones, and they're fan constructed and shit.
Anything with a
but
rabid
everyone
fan
seems
following.
to agree on this general sort of configuration. So that's
Should I like to ask you your opinion of triples?
oh shit. Yeah, me and Scotty went to this Star Trek convention one time, and there was a stupid little kid there that
Every
they
Q&A.
kept letting him get up to the mic for these Q&As, even though his question every time.
Can I ask a question?
Can I ask you, what do you think of tribbles? And it was this question every time.
You know
and
what
every
fucking-
fucking actor that ever acted in Star Trek was forced to sit there and answer this stupid question from this dumbass little
With
kid.
a force chuckle,
Wow.
dude.
He was probably doing it for some school
Dude, you know
project
what,
or some
too?
shit.
You know what's fucked up? Is a lot of people get up there and ask, like, sensible questions. I mean, obviously there's stupid questions like that, too, but, like, then you get people, like, that tell their life story and, like, use emotional and, like, crowd
Oh,
blackmail.
yeah.
Like,
When I was 4 years old, I had nothing in the world to hold on to except for Star Trek. In episode 14 of TES, when Kirk tells Spock that love will find a new home among the stars, it changed my heart.
It's shit like that. Dude, this one bitch was like, I'm dying of cancer. Patrick Stewart, come give me a hug.
It's like, ew.
He's like-
And he's like, oh. He's like doing, you could see him in his head doing the calculus of the situation.
he's like, very well.
Patrick Stewart refuses to hug cancer patient. He's like, fuck that headline.
Yeah.
Of course. Oh,
I'll
what a
tell you what.
heartwarming moment.
I'll tell you what, though, dude.
But he did not want to hug that bitch.
He didn't, but you know what? I mean, props to him for doing it because he was forced to do it in a kind of a way, but also the fact that people are literally paying him $200 fucking dollars for his signature.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean,
We figured out he made like $100,000 just on signing shit.
you know
on
what?
top of whatever they paid him.
you
just to
know what?
show
Actually,
up.
he and like a lot of other people like him do. They actually donate most of the money.
Oh, really?
Or all of it, yeah.
Cool. I'm sure some of those B-list actors that ain't got nothing
Oh
else.
no, they keep that shit.
like the ones that don't have some lucrative acting career to fall back on.
Yeah, I mean,
probably
Patrick Stewart
donating
ain't
it.
hurting for money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So he can
for
just
sure.
give that shit away.
But
if he
I'm
wants.
pretty sure Ensign Kim is keeping the money.
Oh,
that he
Ensign Kim
gets,
is counting that shit in this hotel room like 200, 300.
$13, $14. God damn it, I'm Ensign Kim. $15. Oh, God.
Paul is comic book guy incarnate. Yeah, well, I think that's what he's going for, dude.
Yeah, then he did
Pretty
his
sure
job.
that's the voice he was doing.
Yes,
Anyway,
that
so
would be correct.
this is not, like I said, a fully accurate map or whatever, but you
It's
can
cool to
see
look
the
at, though.
configuration of. I mean, like this is the general.
Well, it gives you an idea when you're watching these shows, like what they're doing and what it's like. You know what I mean?
And where the conflict is coming from.
yeah, like so you see the Federation's in the center. I mean, obviously by
you just have a
design.
totally idea about the kind of conflicts that exist between these races when you see something like this.
Sure.
Worst impression ever. There, I did the reference. There you go.
worst
Whoa.
impression ever.
But I mean, this episode really. There's no way that I'm gonna cover each Star Trek race thoroughly. Several races on this list could probably be episodes unto themselves.
I mean, you're right. I'm like,
And we're not a Star Trek podcast, so it'd be inappropriate to do that.
but I felt though that some of the stuff you left off, it's a sham. This list is a sham. in my opinion.
What I'm really focusing on in this
I
episode.
mean, you admitted.
Yeah, what's that?
You admitted major fucking.
I
Star
did.
Trek
I mean,
races.
look,
you
every
really
cut,
did.
every cut was painful, but the format of this episode is only going to work if I select like a select six.
I
or
demand
seven
another
races.
episode.
All right. I mean, we.
I
Already,
demand another
okay.
fucking episode.
Like, okay, so Scotty, Scotty was pissed because, first of all, I was outside just telling him the shit I left out. I'm like, yeah, I had to cut some of the big ones. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, the way the episode's formatted, I had to just, narrow it down real narrow. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I couldn't do, like, the changelings. And Scotty's, just do your reaction.
Are you out of your fucking mind?
Scotty lost his shit.
Are you out of your fucking mind, dude?
He went ape
Hey,
shit.
remember DS9? Remember your favorite Star Trek series? Why don't you just go fucking buy the fucking Blu-ray collection? Wait for it to get here, let it arrive, open up your Amazon box, put it on the fucking ground, and just take a big diuretic fucking shit all over Star Trek, you fucking fat, worthless chode.
And then when he found out I didn't do, what are the other ones
The
you got
Q.
pissed about? You got really pissed about the Q,
Oh,
too.
yeah. Hey, remember your childhood? Remember the first episode of Star Trek that like really reinvigorated the fucking series? What fucking character was it that was the central character of that episode?
I think it was John Delancey.
Yeah, SQ, you fucking idiot. Dude, you're literally like, hey, the God race. That's not interesting. Cut.
And wasn't that John Delancey?
It was
It's
John
not-
Delancey.
They weren't cut because they weren't interesting. They're just cut because...
the philosophy
I mean, what was I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm going to keep the Q by, like, I got to cut the Klingons. They're not important.
Oh, you did not have to sacrifice that, dude.
Yeah, I did.
So Friday's
you had
episode.
to sacrifice it upon the Mokhtar
So
altar.
now, even though we had something
Kapla!
different planned for Friday, now Scotty's going to do his fucking list, so...
Well, that's fine. Hey, we got nothing but infinite topics for this show
And look,
to cover.
I just want to let you guys know, I'm trying to make this accessible to people who are not necessarily big into Star Trek, or maybe even haven't watched a single fucking
That's
episode.
fine.
Right.
We're trying to explain this. I'm not saying this for your benefit, Scotty. I'm just saying it for people who are like have misgivings. Like, I don't even
go out
like
of your
Star
fucking
Trek.
way. So
What?
dude? I mean, what kind of fucking guy are you? You burn my hand, then you start bombing the wound, and then you just fucking burn it again.
What I
This
do?
ain't for you, bitch. Just so people know.
Yeah. Well, you started responding to it. I'm like, I'm not directing it at you. I'm directing it at the audience.
This is awesome, dude. This
You're a
is
fucking
like
asshole, dude.
this is like the United
me just-
Federation
all right.
of Planets and the Klingon Empire having a
Before we-
diplomatic breakdown.
Before we even start, what race is everyone here?
Ooh, that's a toughin'. I don't know. I'd have to defer to you guys. 'Cause I don't know that I
let me
know
ask you
enough.
a question. Is it based on what you think everyone else would think you are, or what you would want to be?
I don't know. I guess that's part of the discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, I think ideally most people would probably want to be. I would say one of the major ones. I don't think many people would honestly want to be a Borg.
I think Scotty's a Romulan.
I think I'm a Romulan.
Yeah.
I could see that.
He's got that logic thing, but he's kind of he's very standoffish. He's very hard to get to. You know what I mean? He's kind of xenophobic and he likes
He's xenophobic?
Yeah, he likes what he likes.
Wait a minute.
Whoa, dude!
I don't
the
mean
fuck is Scotty even
xenophobic like you know
xenophobic,
what I
dude?
mean. I just mean like in terms of their philosophy. He keeps to himself. He keeps his own counsel.
Okay.
I think that Paul should be.
I didn't mean it like he
I
hates
think-
Mexicans
I think
or
Paul's
some shit.
racist, and I think it should be a triple.
I mean, I have heard Scotty in a rage, in a Mountain Dew fueled rage, ranting against the Mexicans quite a few times.
Oh, well,
so.
It's the Canadians. He has a
I've
problem.
And the Canadians as well.
I've said let's build a wall, not just around, but look, dude, Paul, I'm an equal wall opportunist.
a
Wall-
great northern wall.
yeah, a northern wall and a southern wall.
Right.
All right. So the first race I wanted to take a look at is actually the humans.
And this is
Which-
the best human of them all, dude.
It kind of maybe, I mean, like at first I wasn't going to do humans, but then I realized like the humans of Star Trek are different enough from modern day humans that it probably warrants some examination.
Oh, for sure.
Because they're not, in terms of at least behavior, the same species as we are.
Right.
Because it's just, I mean, it's too
I
different.
mean, in TNG, they have several episodes that even allude to that. It's like, this is how people lived 200 years ago.
yeah, they encountered some people from our time in one episode, and it was like we were just like morons to them. We're just like, these people are fucking stupid as shit.
Yeah, it was like they described the people with like this clinical, like, people used to die from these diseases. Like, heavens.
So the defining traits of the humans in Star Trek, not in real life, just to be clear: hunger for knowledge, desire towards self-improvement, and working towards the betterment of their own society. Not out of any sort of overt obligation, but it's just
and not for
engendered
economic
in the
reasons.
nature of human beings.
Like, people aren't Starfleet because they're getting paid bank.
Their political system is the United Federation of Planets, abbreviated as UFP, commonly referred to as just the Federation. It's an interstellar federal republic composed of planetary governments that agreed to exist semi-autonomously under a single central government based on the principles of universal liberty, rights, and equality, and to share their knowledge and resources in peaceful cooperation, scientific development, space exploration, and for defensive purposes. So, pretty much the exact opposite of the human race as we know it today.
What happens in Star Trek canon to change the trajectory? Because I'm sure in the 60s, this was considered to be a fantastical, idealized
this is still considered
version.
to be a fantastical,
right.
idealized.
So what? But
obviously.
what happens in the world of Star Trek to set humanity on a different course?
The world in like the early in the world in the 21st century goes to total shit.
Yeah. Isn't there a massive nuclear war?
There's
No. But I meant in the show.
Oh, in the show. I see what
Yeah.
you're saying. The earliest shows really don't pick. I mean, they pretty much pick up after warp travel has been invented.
Right.
But going back, it's like.
But I mean, the story is established throughout.
well, it's basically
like,
war.
So the world goes to
War.
shit.
The world goes to shit. World War III
Yeah.
happens. Everything goes totally to shit. There's
Ghettoized.
new inquisitions. There's ghettos. There's massive income inequality and shit like that. Zephram Cochrane invents warp drive. Humanity makes first contact with the Vulcans. The Vulcans give humanity some guidance. Maybe we're influenced by their philosophy to an extent. We see, hey, here's this race of totally stoic people who have moved past all aggression.
Well,
and
the
are
idea of a
pacifists.
the idea of a human-centric universe is just broken in that moment when they make first contact.
Right.
It's like, oh wait, there's a lot of other. There's
But
way
there's
more.
probably
shit out
also
there.
an influence of the Vulcan ideals into humanity. We obviously don't totally embrace their stoic philosophy of suppressing all emotion, but maybe we're influenced to some extent.
Seeing them as
by their
pacifists, though, probably has a profound
The Vulcans
effect
were the
on us.
guiding hand for
Yeah, you see
humanity.
You see this new species that's godlike, and plus they take us under their wing.
Right. Well, that's interesting to note too, because I know we're going to cover the Vulcans, so it's interesting to note that they had a really profound, because humans are a huge political force in the Star Trek world, right?
We're the
we're the central. I mean, you saw the map.
We're the center of the Federation. Earth is the capital planet of the Federation. So we go from basically being it's almost like the story of America in some ways, because it goes from being a backwater to being the center of a huge
Well, it speaks about
empire.
the idea of
Right.
America as being a country like of opportunity,
And like America,
Yeah.
it is a republic. Unlike America, it's a post-capitalist society. We'll read a little about the philosophy.
but it's the idea of expansion, of the frontier.
So here's a philosophical overview that gets a little bit more into some of the stuff we were just talking about. Human philosophy changed much over its history. It was dramatically altered after Zephram Cochrane's test of his warp drive, which initiated Earth's first contact with an alien species. That's the Vulcans. Within 50 years, poverty, hunger, and war among the nations of the Earth had been abolished. Racism and other prejudices soon followed. The discovery of extraterrestrial life and new philosophies such as the Vulcan concept of Edic, placed humanity's self-image in a new perspective. The philosophy of many humans revolved around self-enlightenment and the bettering of society as a whole. A human moral goal was the achievement of knowledge through peaceful exploration, as recognized in Starfleet's prime directive of non-interference with other
So
cultures.
the fundamental operating system of people just totally shifted from like all these things where it's all like you're a Muslim, you're this, you're that.
It's interesting that Gene Roddenberry knew, or at least thought, that humans really didn't have the ability to come to that sort of conclusion on their own.
yeah, we did need
Like,
help.
no matter how awful things got here, we wouldn't have gotten there without the Vulcans. If they hadn't shown up and expanded our horizons and shit and
Well,
showed
I
us that there was a
believe
different
when-
way.
I believe when Gene Roddenberry was alive, the canon was a little different. In his timeline, it was, I think, the Alpha Centauri that were the first
Sure,
contact.
but still, I mean, does it principally remain the same? It's
it's still essentially that
they
it was
come
our,
and elevate
our-
us.
It was our interaction with some of these alien species that brought us to a new level of enlightenment.
It broadened
and shit.
the horizons of humanity.
And plus, just the plenty that came with these new technologies.
yeah, the technologies where it's
there
like
was an economic transformation that made a lot of it possible. I'll get into that. Another aspect of human philosophy was the abolition of money. Greed and selfishness had faded on a mass scale as technological progress opened humanity's possibilities. Earth's economy changed, spurring the creation of the New World economy. Deviations from these ideals were rare and considered abnormal behavior in humans. Obviously, not every human being instantly became an enlightened saint. But,
right.
Many alien cultures found humanity confusing, due in part to the fact that humans were mostly very hesitant to engage in conflict, but would fight with lethal force as a last resort. The inherent conflicting nature made Earth an ideal choice in mediating disputes and finding common ground in interstellar affairs, where the more experienced Vulcans had failed. It is of note that philosophy courses are not required at Starfleet Academy, but they are encouraged. So, the philosophy of Earth is, it's basically like, hey, they've embraced a very progressive sort of post-capitalist society.
See, but I think that we see
and it becomes kind of
we see a very different humanity than what is described in their ideals, though. They talk about being explorers and scientists and hungering for knowledge, but all these shows are about our ships blowing up other people's ships. For whatever reason.
Usually...
So we retain our warlike nature despite being enlightened.
I would say they're more defensive.
Usually in the show, violence is used as an absolute last resort as a means of defense.
There's an episode where this probe is
not always the
basically
case.
attacking the ship.
There are definitely antagonisms.
Well,
with
on TNG, there's an episode that
certain
they see this
races.
probe. There's like this power reactor that's broken down, and they're trying to figure out what, and it keeps like it's attacking the ship. And they later find it's just some alien race that basically they learn about other races and cultures through sending this probe out, and it actually takes them to their home world. To this like where they're able to travel like super fast, basically. Some Star Trek bullshit.
Yeah,
but like even then they almost always assume like a defensive posture. It's like, well, we're curious, but we're not going to attack. Like you don't see episodes of Star Trek where like Picard's like, okay, let's go rape and pillage this village now because we have a starship and they're nothing.
Yeah, but that's just more of that like history is written by the victors shit. We see one perspective in these Star Trek shows, but looking at the whole galaxy, the United Federation of Planets, like I said, looks like a big gobbling amoeba that's just slowly but surely.
That's a criticism that's been levied against them before. Like there was an episode where there was actually a defector against Starfleet. I forget what series it was in, but I do remember that he actually likened humanity to the Borg, which is a species we'll look at a little later, who are just about constant expansion, constant consumption of new worlds, constant homogenization of.
Well, I can
cultures.
just see that. I can see that the evidence of that in humanity in these shows.
Yeah, it's not like. There's definitely, especially in like Deep Space Nine, more of a subversive take on what the Federation represents.
For sure,
it's not all sunshine.
Well,
and roses.
there's definitely
there's
idealists.
a dark side.
Yeah.
There's a bureaucratic side.
There's idealism in there, and there's also there's a lot of pragmatism of like, hey, we have to keep ourselves safe, so sometimes we do need to take these offensive actions. So you're right. It's more nuanced and complex than just like they're the good guys and that's it. I think that's more the Gene Roddenberry view of the Star Trek universe as well.
But the ultimate goal always seems to have these races join the Federation. It's like
but
the
only
Klingon.
but only after they meet a certain criteria.
Well, there's
Right.
a prime directive. There's
like-
rules. It's not just like, hey, we're going to come give you technology.
But like people like Quark from Deep Space Nine, who is a Ferengi, who we'll be learning about them later too. He was very apt to point out, like, you only like species that remind you yourselves. You only like species that reflect your own values. You're not truly tolerant of other cultures.
Right.
So there's definitely been these
you can also
criticisms of
say in a way
the
when they-
Federation made in the context
because the Federation
of
will
Star Trek.
observe these planets, like we're discussing. So you can kind of say there's a kind of way like they're priming it. They're saying, hey, we're kind of making a claim to this planet because when they do reach this level of advancement, then they're going to be part of the Federation. So, like, you're right. There is a sense of, like, this is we want to expand this club.
They have rules again. I mean, there's rigid rules for Federation membership where, like, they won't accept any planet that has civil strife of any kind.
Right. They've got to figure that out. So they've got to elevate themselves to our standards before we'll even consider them.
So it's not like, hey, everybody, come on in.
So it's like
one big
cultural.
umbrella.
It's cultural assimilation.
Right.
It's the slow
But it's
war
voluntary.
of cultural.
It's like you want to be part of the Federation. We're better than you.
Right.
You want to be awesome like us.
Right.
Get your shit together. We're going to tell you how to live. But, I mean, it is a society where people enjoy a tremendous amount of personal freedom.
The point you were speaking, Paul, there's an episode of TNG where they're actually about to initiate first contact.
And I think you're about to see that it is a lot better than some of the alternative.
But yeah,
that you could
the thing
live.
is, they have an episode where they're going to initiate first contact, and they actually talk to the leader of that planet, and the guy's like, nope, leave. And the Federation does leave. So it's not like the Federation is always going to say, well, fuck you, you're going to be part of the Federation or not.
Yeah, I mean, if someone doesn't want to be part of the Federation, they
respect
all right,
that.
Goodbye.
I mean, but isn't the idea that eventually isn't the idea of the Federation to just walk away from the little backwater because eventually we'll own everything around it?
Maybe.
And our cultural influence will be so fucking strong that it'll be a bygone conclusion that future generations.
like any superorganism, it is going to be concerned with its constant expansion.
It's one of the things that always stood out to me about Star Trek is that humans are presented as the good guys, but oftentimes you could make a pretty easy argument for the rebels, for the people that they're fighting against, taking offense to their constant incursions near their fucking territories and shit, not respecting the rights of their borders. And I mean, that type of shit happens all the time in Star Trek.
Someone in here is plugging their Star Trek channel, so if you guys want to check the chat, there is a Star Trek guy in there. I can't attest to the quality of it. But he paid $10 to advertise himself, so I'm just giving him a little shout out.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely see that perspective. And I mean, it's always kind of bothered me that in Star Trek, humanity kind of just goes around the universe morally judging everybody else.
Yeah.
And there's always a sense of like, oh, we're so enlightened and superior.
Yep.
You guys have it so wrong. You guys have it so wrong.
Well, don't you think that's why like a lot of the villains have to be very villainous, where it's kind of like
Right.
they're just like over the top, like evil.
Yeah.
Like they kind of the Romulans are like they're totally just
But
trying
when you're
to
talking
fucking-
about alien species that evolved under different conditions, evil is relative, and like a truly evolved, enlightened group of people ought to know something like that.
But you can only.
And I know that a lot of the episodes
coexistence is only possible to an extent. I mean, just because you understand, hey, you can say to yourself, the Klingons, let's respect their culture and leave it alone. But the Klingons ain't going to just be like, okay, well, that's fine. They're going to be like, well, we're going to take you over. So you have to have an antagonistic posture towards that. I mean, you can't just be like, that's fine. We have a huge warlike empire that survives on constant expansionism through brutal means over there, but that's not a problem, It is. You have to recognize that from a pragmatic standpoint.
Look at the amount of worlds under the control of the Klingon Federation, though. I mean, can you imagine the difference that it might be living in that federation and looking at that giant blob
I think the reality,
federation?
Paul,
oh yeah,
like who's the aggressor here?
I get your devil's advocate thing. I get it, but the thing is too is that in the politics of the Star Trek universe, if you don't join one of these giant consortiums, you're basically going to be fucking taken over anyways.
You're better off going with the one that's going to give you some personal freedom.
Yeah.
And
so it's the devil you know is
voluntary.
better than the one that you don't argument again. It's the lesser of two evils argument.
Okay.
Again.
So if we get to
the end of
geopolitical
this-
things, you wouldn't just say, "Well, we can't do anything with Russia
tell me which
because
species you'd want to."
Okay.
I don't want to be violent."
Okay, I can do that. I don't like the humans though. That smug air of superiority you
All
were
right,
talking about.
So let's move
Since
on.
Paul, Paul, I just think you wouldn't cut it in the Federation.
Let's
No,
move
these
on
guys.
to Paul's good friends. the
These
Vulcans.
guys here.
Now, Paul met this guy,
I actually did.
and he criticized you.
He did. He was he gave me some very, very blunt criticism of my rather heartless, shitty performance for him. And I remember it. I will always remember it. He was a cool dude. He gave a lot of money so kids could learn how to be actors and stuff.
So these are Vulcans, notable for their sort of pointy ears, sharp eyebrows, dorky haircuts. Defining traits: strict adherence to logic, stoicism, and suppression of all emotion. Although there are some Vulcan schools of thought where they seek to control emotion rather than suppress it, but most of them go with suppression. Their political system, that's easy. They're also members of the Federation. In fact, they're also founding members of the Federation.
But Spock is actually half human.
Yes, Spock is half human. That's true. But he looks entirely Vulcan.
He does.
The Vulcans were, this is the philosophy overview, they were once an extremely violent and emotional people, even by Earth standards, who waged almost constant warfare on one another. Paranoia and homicidal rage were common. They believed in a variety of gods, such as a god of war, a god of peace, a god of death. As their level of technology improved, the Vulcans eventually reached a point where their violent nature threatened the extinction of their species. In order to avoid this fate, a Vulcan named Serac developed a new philosophy, thereby igniting what was called the Time of Awakening. Serac maintained that the root cause of all the problems on Vulcan lay in the uncontrolled outpouring of the people's emotions. His followers swore to live their lives by an ethical system devised by Serac and based purely on logical principles. Emotions were to be controlled and repressed. Though committed to the concept of total logic, Vulcan philosophy at the time of the awakening did not just abandon its past. Vulcans continued to maintain ceremonies dedicated to ancient religious beliefs and physical training. The Vulcans reasoned that the complete dedication to logic could allow for weakness and frailty to arise and endanger them. Thus, ancient practices such as the Kaswa, I don't know what that is, were preserved, and many Vulcans continued some form of dedication to their ancient gods, including ritual pilgrimages. This is a symbol that's very important to the Vulcans. It's called the Edict. It's an acronym that stands for Infinite Diversity in Infinite Combinations. It's the symbol to them of truth and beauty. The concept really hasn't been extremely well developed within the canon, but it is considered the basis of their philosophy of logic.
What is it again? Infinite diversity and infinite combinations. Okay.
That's what this symbol means. So kind of an interesting species, riddled with some interesting contradictions. I find it interesting that they have committed themselves entirely to logic, yet maintain their rituals to some extent, and also they still do art and music, and they still have a certain aesthetic quality to their architecture.
Well, there's still a
So it's
culture. They still have. They still. I think they still have the need to have something of a culture. It's not like they're just purely logical. They have some things that, I mean, they suppress their emotions, but I mean, in a way that
They haven't actually eliminated them.
yeah.
I don't know how the Vulcan suppression works, but you can kind of see it, I think, portrayed pretty well in the performances of some of the actors who have brought the Vulcans to life.
Because in extreme
like Leonard
moments,
Nimoy.
they obviously do feel emotions.
Right.
Or it does overwhelm them.
I mean, Spock had a few emotional outbursts in the original series. Now he is half human, so he might be a little more
You can
prone
blame it
to
on that.
But even like Tuvok from Voyager, he still had emotional outbursts. There are some Vulcans who have personality traits that are definitely related to emotions. Like there's clearly been some pretty smug Vulcans on the show. They have a sort of sense of superiority about them.
One thing about them that they always mention is that Vulcans don't lie.
Yeah.
If a Vulcan tells you something, you're supposed to, it's kind of like they're probably telling you the truth. You can almost definitely assume that is
I think
true.
the Vulcans are just living out their emotional lives vicariously through the humans, who they saw as having tempers just as fiery as their own, but not being willing to totally give themselves over to logic, because the humans still admire that passion and that fire. So the Vulcans just get to have that little. It's like that, having that friend that does crazy shit. So you can kind of, you know what I mean?
Vicariously through.
Yeah.
I mean, you can kind of see that in the Kirk Spock relationship, maybe.
For sure, yeah.
Which you could kind of take that as like a microcosm of the whole thing. But it's kind of an interesting thought that here's some people whose emotions are so completely volatile that they can't coexist peacefully. So they decide the problem is these emotions themselves. We just need to get rid of them. We need to purge them from our being and commit ourselves to conduct based on logic and rationality totally forego certain sentimentalities, but also kind of holding on to them in their culture. And I just wonder, like, would that actually work?
What's the strange dichotomy with a culture that elevated itself out of chaos with the power of strict logic, still holding on to stupid bullshit like worshiping the volcano god and shit?
That's what I'm saying. Like, to me, those kind of ceremonies and stuff are meant to elicit an emotional reaction. So when you strip the emotional reaction away from that, like, what
are you
value
left with?
does it even have?
Yeah, what is ritual without the emotional payoff of it?
Maybe it's a reminder to them to remember where they've come from, how they've risen to where they are now. Is not by forgetting.
It just seems like a reminder of conflict, though, right? Because there were probably
Yeah,
endless
Paul,
wars
but Paul,
between
don't,
these.
Don't they say that those who are with history, isn't the lesson of history those who forget history are doomed to repeat it? So
Yeah,
to
but
say,
I mean,
we should wash that away.
No, I didn't say wash it away. Like, chronicle it and keep a good
Yeah,
eye
it
on it
seems like they would
historically,
just-
but don't keep fucking
like they would just
putting on the
teach the
stupid ass
history,
robe.
Like, instead of actually doing the ritual. But
It's one of the weird dichotomies because I don't think that Vulcans are served well by. In fact, I think one of the big narrative structures that I remember from the show, especially the original series, was that Spock was almost retarded in his ability to not think outside of his logical structure. And somebody was always trying to impinge upon Spock more emotion and tell him to be more emotional and get him to have a richer emotional life. The biggest influence on him in that was Kirk. And so I think that even the show kind of admits that this stoicism is a bad thing. Because it's a constant conflict within them. They don't have mastery over their emotions.
No.
They just lose it at the last opportune moment. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe that's why these rituals still exist, so they have some sort of outlet.
Maybe.
for
That
these
might
feelings,
explain it.
Like, they need that because, like you said, I mean, the emotions
I also
haven't
think-
been completely purged.
I also think
so
that
maybe
the
they
view
need
of
some
Vulcans
sort of-
from TOS on has evolved too. I think that's more of the Gene Roddenberry view of Vulcans.
That's true. And that really is where most of my knowledge of Vulcans comes from.
I don't think they've changed too considerably, but
I wouldn't say that they. I mean, like, I would say, like, I know what he's talking about. I don't think they're really as into doing that with Spock as they did, let's say the new movies. They're always kind of trying to be like, hey, Spock, but I mean, they also kind of
even in the
acknowledge-
new movies, though, if you look at Spock's thing, it's all about him having a richer emotional life. He's in love with what's her name, and he's trying to express himself more, and he's trying to be more friendly and open. And so, even in the movies, you see that struggle written in there, and it's obviously.
I
a
think
farce.
you should. I mean, it wouldn't.
well,
it wouldn't
that's the most
be,
interesting
it wouldn't
thing
make
about
sense for
Spock
his.
as a character, too.
Yeah, it would make sense for Spock as a character to just be like, I'm content being the way I am. I mean, I
But
agree with you.
Spock's really our introduction to the Vulcans, and we see that same shit reflected in their
interesting
political problems.
'cause, like,
the barely repressed simmering rage at the
Well,
heart
like,
of every
remember in
Vulcan.
the first, it was the first Star Trek
Yeah.
movie, the 2009, when Spock was getting bullied by kids. So obviously, even the Vulcan children, they still had some emotion. It's like I want to bully him.
Right.
Yeah,
like
I
you're
mean-
not you're not up to our standards. So there's still definitely an antagonism in that society.
Yeah, so I mean, really, to me, my problem with Vulcans is the idea that they're suppressing their emotions really doesn't hold up against their observed behavior.
No, it doesn't hold up under scrutiny. It's not. They're not repressing or controlling anything. They're just stuffing it. They're stuffing their
They've
emotions.
just gotten really good at it.
right.
So yeah, I think that's interesting.
It's interesting that they found a way to get along with humanity. Like I said earlier, humanity being the fiery, impulsive.
By the way, kind of an interesting aside about this: when Gene Roddenberry brought up the idea for this necklace and this symbol, Leonard Nimoy protested because he's like, fuck you, Gene. You just want to sell some shitty piece of merchandise. Because, of course, these necklaces were all up for sale and shit.
Oh, yeah,
Naturally.
for sure.
So he's like, don't use me to peddle your fucking shitty,
You know what's
cheap-ass
crazy?
jewelry,
Is also
Gene."
how Star Trek.
But of course, he did do it, so.
I mean, Star Trek. I mean, besides the comic books, Star Trek really kind of like was a huge player in spawning the interest in conventions because people were going to conventions for Star Trek. I think like from the '60s on, the '70s.
Yeah.
I mean,
it
it was-
definitely paved the way for that kind of shit.
I mean, I'm not saying that was the original thing. I know there was Comic-Con and other things, but it's just like crazy how, when you go to the Star Trek convention in Las Vegas, it's just like so many people show up from just different walks of life and shit, and just how the show.
Well, people like all
has
these
affected
contradictions
people.
we're talking about. I think that's what makes it such a rich
exactly.
show.
I mean,
And
contradictions
how your perspective is
are-
totally different than, say, someone else's that's watched
Yeah.
the book. Because
Well,
I haven't really thought about the Federation necessarily in the way you were talking about it.
Right.
I've thought about it like that. I haven't committed to that thought process.
I mean, I'm not
but
saying I
can
agree
see
with it or whatever. I'm just saying that's why I like talking about these shows with other people, because I get to hear their other, like where they come down on these things. Because
Right.
Paul thinks it's almost like it's an evil force.
So here's the Klingons.
Daknach.
Defining traits: a warrior race, extreme emphasis on tradition and honor. Scotty, do you know what the governmental system of the Klingons is?
It's a council, but there's a leader of the council. So I guess it would be a military dictatorship.
Nope.
What is it?
Close. It's a feudal monarchy.
Oh, a feudal monarchy. That makes sense.
With power residing in traditionally the emperor. But
They have houses and stuff. You're right. That
For
makes
some
sense.
reason, it was replaced with a chancellor at some point. Traditionally, a descendant of Kalis, who we'll learn about in a little bit. However, de facto power lay with the Klingon High Council. As I said, they got rid of the emperor for some reason, replaced him with a chancellor as the de facto head of the empire and head of the High Council, which consists of 24 members representing various great houses, which are essentially the nobility
Right.
of the Klingon
It's
Empire.
a very medieval kind of structure.
Yes. Women were not permitted to hold seats on the High Council. Despite that, Gowron, who was a chancellor,
Pictured here.
he's actually the one with
He's
the,
on the one on
bulge-
the right.
bug eyes there. He actually did give Ambassador Kalar a seat on the council, or offered it to her in exchange for her support in his bid to be chancellor. There was also Azitbur, the daughter of Chancellor Gorkin, who was permitted to succeed him as chancellor in 2293. Various factions almost constantly challenge the leadership of the empire, and so over time the Klingons developed a strict and rigorous right of succession to determine the leader. According to tradition, one was permitted to challenge the leader on the grounds of cowardice or dishonorable conduct and fight in single combat. Should the challenger slay the incumbent, he assumed the role of the new leader.
Oh.
So if you were in a position to challenge the chancellor and say, "Chancellor, you're a fucking coward," you could fight him in one-on-one combat, and if he won, he got to remain chancellor. If you won, you're the new leader of the Klingon Empire.
Wouldn't the Chancellor's life be just an endless bunch of fucking fights?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's the Klingons. I mean, that makes sense for
Right.
Klingons.
But you have to remember, like the
You
power.
have- they respect warriors.
Right.
The power structure for that also insulates them. Like these are very insulated people
Right.
too. Like
so
they're-
really,
are
the only
Klingons,
people
rather.
that are going to be challenging him are people within his inner circle.
Yeah,
and
no-
they
the
have to-
nobility.
and really, the political reality is they have to have the support of others around them.
Okay. Right.
So, but these challenges are laid down with some frequency because they all
Yeah, you have to
they all wanna
expect
be the
that
leader.
at some point you're gonna have to fight. For
If
your
you're the
fucking seat.
if you're the chancellor of the Klingon Empire, you're going to be fighting for your position.
Right.
Aside from challenges to the primary leadership of the Empire, there was also frequent feuding between the various great houses. Most often, the challenge was made on the floor of the High Council and resolved on the battlefield. So even though they exist under one banner, under one government, it's almost like the Greek city-states that would, they're kind of interconnected, but they're still fighting wars against one another. So there's constant civil war within the Empire.
and everyone's gonna kind of curry favor with the chancellor. Like basically, the chancellor position is just like you're basically like a king. You're just ferrying the different factions and playing them against each other in order to keep your spot.
Yes.
Right.
Because if they're fighting each other, they're not fighting you.
The Klingons they don't like to come across as being political in nature, but there's actually pretty convoluted politics within their, power structure.
Yeah.
It's something that they overtly say like, no, but
No, the two comparisons I hear from human cultures I hear a lot are Mongolians and basically the shogunate. The
I heard them described the other day on a channel that I've used for some of this called Trexpertise. Someone described them as kind of a mix between samurai and Vikings, and I can
That makes
totally
sense.
see
Interesting.
that.
I haven't really heard that one. That is interesting.
So here's a philosophy overview of the Klingons. According to Klingon mythology, Kortar, also called Kotar, was the first Klingon. The gods created him, and they created him with the strongest heart in all of the cosmos. but it beat weakly. And they're like, what the fuck? We made this heart super strong. Why is it so weak? And they asked him, and it's like, it's because I'm alone. So they made the Klingon woman, and they made her heart wiser and all kinds of other stuff. His was stronger, hers was wiser. They feared each other at first, but then they realized if we come together, nothing can stop us. And then Kotar and his mate slayed the gods that created them. As punishment, Kotar was forced to ferry the dead.
Who was around to punish him?
I don't know. That's not clear. That's a big question mark.
They killed the gods.
But he was condemned to ferry the souls of the dishonored to Grethor, which is basically Klingon hell. The most important figure in Klingon philosophy is Kahless the Unforgettable. I think I have a picture of him here. This is a picture of a clone of Kahless. Convoluted story we don't need to get into. He was called Kahless the Unforgettable. He was a legendary mytho-historical figure. Kind of like Klingon Jesus, basically.
Klingon Jesus.
He was.
looks like it too.
He was the first warrior king and emperor of the Klingon Empire, known as the greatest warrior of all time. Kahless was the last Klingon to unite all tribes until the Federation Klingon War of 2256, which was started with that purpose by a Klingon called I'm gonna fuck this up. Kuvma, who was concerned that his race had begun to forget the unforgettable. Kahless's battle cry, "Today is a good day to die," continued to be a popular Klingon utterance into the 24th century, including the simpler form, "It is a good day to die."
So why are they still so warlike if their founding principle is that their Humak or whatever the fuck was, he killed the gods and got punished for it? And there's a whole hell and shit for people who do, like, why did they end up such a violent
That's not
species?
who goes to hell, though.
Who goes to hell? Well, the dishonored, right?
Those who don't fight.
Kahless gave his people laws and a warrior code of honor that all Klingons are supposed to live by. When Kahless united the people, he gave them the laws of honor. When he saw that his work was done, this is where the Jesus shit comes in real strong, by the way. When he saw his work was done, he gathered his belongings, went to the edge of the city to say goodbye. His people wept. They didn't want him to go. Kahless said, "You are Klingons. You need no one but yourselves. I will go now to Stovokor, Klingon heaven. But I promise one day I will return," just like Jesus. Then Kahless pointed to a star in the sky and said, "Look for me there on that point of light." The Klingon afterlife, which you were just asking about, Paul, is divided into two branches. The dishonored were taken to Grethor aboard the Barge of the Dead, which is a vessel captained by Kotar, who we heard about earlier.
Right.
So once in Grethor, the dishonored were watched over by the Feklar, who's basically the Klingon devil. While it may be tempting to view him as the devil, which I just did, according to a statement by Kang, the Klingons have no devil, but he's the devil. Those who died honorably supposedly went to Stovokor, where Kahless was said to await them. However, should a noble warrior die in a manner that might not merit a place in Stovokor, such as being assassinated in a surprise attack, he can still earn a place if others dedicate a great battle to his name, thus showing that he earned respect among the living. So even if you were a badass warrior all your life, if you die like a bitch,
Right.
you're not going to go to Stovokor
So
unless
Valhalla-
your friends go and fight someone else in your name.
So basically, it's kind of like Valhalla, dude. It's like you only go there if you're a warrior.
Yeah.
You
it is-
only go there, not only if you're a warrior,
But a
you
successful warrior.
You have to die in battle.
Right.
So it's
Honorably.
like Vikings.
Yeah.
Sure.
You have to be killed in battle to go to Stovokor, or if you die dishonorably, someone has to fight a great battle in your name to get you into Stovokor.
That's pretty cool, dude.
Because the warrior caste is so revered in Klingon society, things like science, education, medicine suffer. Even the brightest Klingon minds receive very little respect from their fellow Klingons. Only combat prowess earns respect.
Well, how did they get elevated then to the point of starfaring?
Mostly through stealing technology from other species.
How did they get that?
Wasn't it also implied the Federation?
There are aliens who. No, the Klingons were already spacefaring by the time the Federation.
No, but
encountered them.
the Federation gave them some technology.
Yes, the Federation did give
And it was
them some
disastrous
technology.
because they were kind of like a Wild West mentality.
Right, and there are species among the cosmos who will go to pre-warp civilizations and be like, give me all your mineral rights here and I'll give you warp technology. So maybe it was something like that.
Cool.
I don't know for sure with them. And, just because science is not prized by the Klingons doesn't mean there are no Klingon scientists. They have those people. It's just they're not really given a respected place in society. They're just
it's not like the Federation where it's kind of like they're super
if you're a
respected.
great astrophysicist, Klingons are going to look at you like you're a fucking janitor or something.
Yeah, you're a pussy. It's like you're not doing shit.
Oh, fucking scientist, huh?
Don't want to fight, huh?
I don't want to talk to no
Pussy.
scientist.
Motherfuckers lying and getting me pissed. So yeah, the Klingons, kind of a mix between like a very Asian honor-based culture and more of a like
a Spartan.
It's kind of
Viking
hard
warrior
to
culture.
talk about the Klingons philosophically because it's like, what is honor to them? Like, what are the principles?
basically it's all about combat and battle.
So, but like, okay, so is it honorable in a Klingon society to see a weakling on the side of the road and to go and kill him?
There's no honor in just killing some weakling.
So it's like, so it's not like a culture of but like weaklings are bullied in their culture,
basically,
obviously.
You want to kill warriors. You want to kill
but
other
there's
people.
no honor in it. It's not going to add to your honor to go, like
beat up a weakling.
yeah.
They're not going to sing songs about you if you fucking kill a fucking bum on the
Okay.
side of the road. They're going to sing songs if you kill another great warrior. Like they're going for that big score.
So
make their name.
it is honorable then to go start a fight where there was none with somebody that's of equal or better.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Or at least a threat.
Right.
Someone who can at least fight back.
well, one
And
of the things,
Klingons, of course, expanded their empire through conquest and invasions.
one of the things you learn is that a lot of them.
subjugation.
I mean, like these rules are in theory the rules for their society, but these rules get bent a lot.
Yeah, just like how the Federation doesn't live up to its principles,
Right.
neither do the Klingons. Or
There's a lot
the
of
Vulcans
cowards
or
and
any
stuff
of
to
these
make it to the
things.
top.
How do they reconcile what happens in every war, which is, the biggest casualties are the weak and the infirm and people that can't take care
They
of
don't
themselves.
care.
So when they have a society that's based all on honorable war, but the result is a pile of weakling bodies.
Yeah.
Well, how do they come to reconcile
Well, that's
those two
conquest.
things?
They're fine with that.
They don't care about that.
Yeah, they don't care about that.
They're not there to fight the weak. But they don't care what happens to the
Let's talk about the wars they have amongst one another.
one
right.
another.
Yeah, like the civil wars. You know what I mean? You got to imagine that those civil wars are made up of towns
Oh well,
of
sure.
Klingons
Those
and
are just
shit.
casualties of war.
Right.
Well, that's honorable to them because they're engaged in warfare.
Yeah.
What about the
pillaging.
people that weren't though? The weak, the kids, and
They
the
should have
women,
been,
and the
they should have been stronger.
Yeah. Casualties of war. Just, the Klingons aren't going to be concerned about that. They're not a touchy-feely people. So, just because there's no honor in it doesn't mean they
well,
actually
isn't
have a
honor
problem with
traditionally
it.
like defending people like that though?
Not among Klingons.
No.
No.
They-
Honor there. Look, like if they say there's a story in Klingon mythology where Kahless invades the town of his enemy, and he kills his enemy, and then he kills the men, women, and children of the town. Then he fucks his mate amidst their corpses, and Klingons look at that as like, wow, what a great
The greatest love story.
what a
dude.
great love story. It's so romantic. They slaughtered an entire town together.
Cool.
So that's their mentality. They're not too concerned about,
Life is cheap.
yeah. And they view it as they have a very nihilistic philosophy in the sense that they view the universe as totally. They don't believe that they have a special place in it. They think there's something special about themselves, but they don't. It comes from within them, and they recognize that. They realize the universe is cold and doesn't care, and neither do they really. They care about their honor. They care about their glory. There's some emphasis placed on things like family, but it's more about personal honor.
It's pretty clear that later on in the Star Trek series that it starts ripping the Empire apart.
Yeah.
How
really
do
does.
how do they rise to the without a strong scientific backing? It's just hard because I remember in the old in like TNG, they had cloaking and that was a big thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was something that only I think the Romulans
almost
had.
certainly stolen from the Romulans.
Yeah.
But I mean, like just being able to take that and integrate it into your own technology in such a way that you can actually stand up to people who have vastly superior ships and shit.
Right.
Because that's what I always understood. The Klingon bird of prey on its own, pretty weak piece of shit ship in comparison to what the Federation had, but it was made really, really kind of like dangerous because it could just appear like it was cloaked. So like they must. How do they keep minds around that could integrate that technology?
Well, you have to think about it too. Is like what TJ is saying is they don't prize that, but it still exists in their culture.
Right.
Obviously, there's a necessity for it to exist. It's just not like it's kind of like if you're in the military. Obviously, you're going to be like, wow, it's like that's great. This person's like, and there's a lot. Obviously, they've given especially in Klingon society a prized position. But it just means these other positions are like, yeah, they exist. They need scientists. Of course, they have to have.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be
like
a
that.
Klingon accountant. They're just not respected.
They're just not respected. They exist, but they just don't. They're just. No one cares about them.
Why would anybody settle for being that?
Well, because
they can't cut it.
Yeah, because they just can't cut it as warriors.
Oh, okay.
If you can't be a warrior, you can't be a warrior.
Right.
I mean, they have their own standards too. If you don't meet those standards,
I mean, it's like asking why someone would be. Like
but aren't you just going to go to
high school
weaklings
teacher,
hell and shit? Like, wouldn't it be better if you went and picked a fight with a big dude and died in battle with him?
Yeah,
it's pretty clear that a lot of those people.
But I'm sure if they're a scientist, they probably know there's no fucking stove, of course.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think a lot of those. I mean, I think a lot of it's also just like that's good.
The intellectual echelons of Klingon society are probably just not very powerful. They're not gonna be challenging for authority anytime soon. But I mean, they're perfectly capable of being. I mean, like Worf was. In TNG was perfectly capable of doing scientific investigation and understood technology and stuff, but still had that, I am a warrior kind of thing.
Right.
So I mean his first reaction is like, how do we fight our way out of this? What is our defensive posture we're going to take?
But I think that probably a society like this probably would struggle to keep up. With some of these other societies.
It's constantly tearing at itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's a constant civil war. Anyone can be the leader at any time.
The fact that
they don't prize the people who bring them the technological innovation.
As far as battle is concerned, yeah, the Federation is powerful, but they're not. But pretty much anyone when they encounter a Klingon ship, they're encountering mostly warriors,
right? Who
are battle hardened and like if they
and
fight,
everything about their ships is designed for battle.
If they fight them,
they're not exploratory vessels.
It's not in their favor generally. And like you said, there's usually multiple ships hiding, waiting, and they like ambush and they like hitting you suddenly, and then you're attacked by a group of superior fighters.
Do Klingons subjugate smarter/weaker races to do non-warrior stuff? Yeah, they do sometimes.
So they're a slave. They're slavers too.
They don't have outright slaves in the sense of like I order you around because I own you, but like in the sense of having entire worlds under their subjugation. Yes.
Right, and making them do the grunt work for the warrior caste and shit. Okay.
So that could be part of the answer as well.
Technical slavery.
Next, I want to talk about the Romulans.
Now, aren't the Romulans cousins of the Vulcans?
They are indeed. The defining traits of the Romulans are they are xenophobic, isolationist, militaristic, and deceitful.
Yeah, dude.
Just like me, apparently.
Romulan Scotty, dude. Look at him right there.
Fucking xenophobic, isolationist, militaristic.
Just go ahead and Photoshop my face on
deceitful Scotty. Kind of looks like you already, dude.
I mean, yeah, there you go. Just complete the job, dude.
So
give this fucking Romulan a Mountain Dew shirt, and we're good.
Their political system, they are actually a military society. Although they're not an outright military dictatorship. In Romulan society,
right?
Military/political rank influences social standing. Because Romulans were members of a militaristic civilization who considered defending the Romulan Empire. I mean, they basically are.
They're basically space
and
Romans.
Their own personal honor of foremost importance, military service and accompanying rank were decisive factors in determining social eminence. However, while the military played an important role in Romulan society, it was the Romulan Senate that controlled the government. By the 23rd century, the highest position of power was held by the Praetor, who presided over the Romulan Senate. By the 24th century, the government of Romulus was dependent on the Tal Shiar, which is the Romulan secret police, to maintain order and stability among both civilians and the military. The Tal Shiar was best known for its brutal tactics, which included routine kidnapping, torture, and assassination. Many Romulans feared even expressing dissenting opinions in order to not bring on the attention of the Tal Shiar. Romulan society was based on a highly structured caste system. Unlike most of the highly evolved species in the Alpha/Beta quadrant, Romulans still practice slavery. In this case, of the Remans, which they used for slave labor and as shock troops. Romulans tend to be highly xenophobic, engaging in extended periods of isolationism, and could be perceived as outright racist to other species, believing themselves to be superior. Both male and females could command warships, obtain high political positions, and could be members of the Tal Shiar.
There's actually a really great episode with and actually Leonard Nimoy reprises his role as Spock. It's called it's actually a 2-part thing on
Reunification.
TNG. Reunification. Yes, I'm sure you've seen, because you said you've seen TNG.
Yeah. Well, this is an interesting one because this is the first race that we've learned about tonight where, like, the people that wrote it are broadcasting what they want us to think about them.
Oh, yeah.
Romulus and Remus are the brothers that,
Quote, unquote, founded
Rome,
basically
suckling at the mother wolf's teeth.
The mythology behind, how
So
Rome
it's just
was founded.
obvious they're wanting to point, like, this is Rome, this is Roman, this is very Roman. So, we can kind of look at them through the same lens we would look at the Roman Empire, because it's very, very obvious from the way that they're written and the not so subtle hints that are dropped in their naming scheme.
And then you have this kind of like SS, the Tal Shiar, this force in their society that just monitors everyone and everything. Because obviously at that point they have the technology that anything you say, and a lot of it's actually just used for political posturing too within the Senate itself. That's why it's implied that people, the way that, since they're obviously, when you see them dealing with the Federation, it's always through deceit and guile and basically subterfuge. That's basically the same thing in their the political schemes of their society. You see that a lot cropping up, where they're trying to investigate someone to frame this person to eventually end this person's career so that this person can advance.
Right.
So it's really an interesting.
I mean, that's exactly like a less technological version of that is exactly what was going on in the Roman Senate. There's a constant information war going on, constantly trying to get one up or whatever information wise,
and just playing the mob. It's like this.
Right.
This is the official thing. But like you said, then that person gets deposed. Then now this is the official version of things. The official version's whatever the most powerful faction says.
So did they split at one point from the Vulcans?
I believe they did.
Due to was it like a disagreement over the
philosophy? I believe
philosophy and the suppression of emotion.
Wasn't it a disagreement over the philosophy of Serac?
When Serac's reforms of embracing logical principles and rejecting emotions spread rapidly across Vulcan in the 4th century, a minority rejected Serac's ideals. They were described as those who march beneath the raptor's wings, a symbol later to be used in the Romulan Star Empire, and eventually they departed Vulcan after losing a nuclear war called the Time of Awakening. At some point, they settled on twin planets that became known as Romulus and Remus, thereby hanging the foundation of the Romulan Star Empire. The philosophy of Romulan civilization involved both complete loyalty to the race as a whole and the celebration rather than repression of instinctual, passionate emotions. More specifically, Romulans believed in loyalty to the state and government above one's own needs. Within the military, loyalty was directed to the Praetor himself. One was expected to adhere to the Praetor's orders with no thought of personal opinion. The one philosophy they shared with their mortal enemy, the Klingons, is that there was no greater honor than to die in service of their nation. This shared belief was known to the Romulans as the Romulan path to glory. The Romulans also had a belief in their own superiority above all other species that went beyond mere arrogance. Unlike their Vulcan counterparts, Romulans did not hide their emotions. They tended to revel in them, being kind and loving one moment, yet violent the next.
Interesting.
So there have been some episodes where physiological differences have been explored between the two races, with Dr. Crusher in one episode saying that the physiological differences between Romulans and Vulcans was subtle, but that there were a lot of little deviations.
Did you say Culkins?
Culkins?
Macaulay Culkins.
The Culkin race.
The race of the Culkins.
Watch out. Was it Harry and Marv? Was that their names?
So 2 examples, I guess, of 2 different kinds of militarism here from these last 2 races. The Klingons and Romulans seem to be almost kind of like twins, just in terms of, the output of their civilization being nothing but war and expansionism and the kind of glorification of such.
The one big difference between the two species other than the Romulans having a senate rather than a council. They're not as feudalistic and stuff.
No, definitely not.
But the main difference between their approaches is that the Romulans like to conquer. The Romulans actually don't use force as their first tool.
They like if the Romulans are using showing force, it's posturing.
They like
certainly.
they like to posture the strength of their military, but they're much more prone to use deceit and guile to win the day. Like, for instance, they actually, in the 22nd century, tried to infiltrate Vulcan. They actually infiltrated the highest levels of Vulcan politics, discovered some false teachings of Serac that they used to kind of lead the Vulcan people astray and kind of play them.
I think
for
the way that
saps.
sums it up best is like it's like the game 3-card Monty. They like the deck rigged in their favor,
and they like proxy wars. They like to do what the U.S. does. Like, hey, we hate these people,
Here's
so
some
let's
weapons.
arm their enemies and inflame tensions between them, and then we'll come on in and take over the wreckage.
Right.
Klingons would just march in and be like, we're taking over, we're fucking Klingons, we're badass, fuck you. Romulans are more like, let's destroy them from within using our little cat and mouse games, and then we'll go in.
Right. Okay.
So that's kind of the main difference in their approaches. But the Romulans, of course, when forced into aggression, can be quite powerful. It's just not their first resort. They like to play the waiting game. They're very patient. They like to destroy you from within.
They're very calculated.
I used to really like the Romulan ship design in The Next Generation.
Oh, I love the way their ships look.
Yeah.
They had a
I
really
could pull one
cool.
up.
They had a really cool looking ship design. That's another thing that's interesting about these. You can look at the design of the ships that these different races fly, and sometimes see their philosophy kind of represented in the architecture of them. They all have a very distinct look about them.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's when it's made for a television audience, you have to make it really clearly delineated. Like the Romulans was green. It was like they have a fucking green ship. I mean, you know what the Federation ships look like. I mean, they have this kind of metallic look to them.
Yeah.
They're more. I mean, I won't say there's not as much aesthetic appeal because the Enterprise is a really cool looking ship, but it was always interesting to see how the alien ships looked. You know what I mean? Like, and how the aliens looked. Because honestly, I feel because obviously they did it with models.
Yeah.
Those little models they built, that it was like you could really see a lot more personality in the ships than sometimes the other races. Because some of these more minor races that we're not covering, there's very little difference between humans. Like, it's like they slap some prosthetic on their head. You know what I mean?
Right.
So the ship actually kind of evokes more of a kind of like, oh, here's like the differences in how they developed.
Yeah.
So do you have any? Can you put up a Romulan ship?
I'm looking for like a thing that just shows us a bunch of.
What are they called again? Warbirds or something like that?
Yeah.
Romulan warbirds. Yeah. I remember those being a real antagonist for a long stretch of The Next Generation.
Oh, the
Romulans.
cat and mouse game they would always
Yep.
play. Yeah.
Well, here's some ships anyway.
So here's one.
Yeah, man.
There's this. The ones that you saw on TNG a lot were more like this.
Yeah,
dude,
dude.
that's the fucking
Oh, that's
kicker
a
right there.
dope looking fucking ship right there, man. Yeah. Really cool looking ships.
What about the Klingons?
Klingons.
Klingon.
The Klingons.
Yeah, I remember the bird of prey kind of looking like a hawk or something. They had the two wings and the
Oh, dude,
torpedo
but I'll tell you
port
what,
on
my
the head.
I think we're getting to them soon, but the fucking Borg cube was my favorite.
Borg cube is just a cool because
It's so fucking cool.
aerodynamics don't
And the
matter
way it
in
moves,
space.
dude, it's like this supernatural movement they give it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like all the other ships, you kind of understand. Like, this is how it's moving. This is its propulsion system. But the Borg cube, are just like it just moves. You know what I mean?
Yep,
Like, it just
it's
effortlessly.
definitely a cool design.
Yeah, the bird of prey is kind of like that.
Yeah.
It's definitely more. You could see a more Spartan look than that. You know, it's meant to be intimidating, but not to have a lot of excessive design elements. You know.
Yep.
Still looks pretty cool though.
I remember Vulcan ships looking all smooth and shit. They look all
Oh,
cyan.
dude, I love the ship they gave in the 2009 Star Trek movie. Like,
Oh yeah, the one they gave
Spock.
Spock.
Oh, that
Yeah,
was a
dude.
cool fucking ship,
That
dude.
little science and exploration ship he flies around. Who are these dorks?
These are the Ferengi.
Oh yeah, the Ferengi.
They kind of stand out a little bit among these races because most of these races are motivated by things that you can at least see as kind of lofty. But
These guys are motivated by money and profit.
yes. What the hell?
They actually, the guiding kind of thing in their society throughout much of it until the very end of Deep Space Nine is the rules of acquisition.
They're actually not supposed to be next, but whatever. We'll just do
They're
it
next, I guess, whatever. Which are rules that the Ferengi use in order to basically achieve greater wealth. Because in their society, the more wealth you have, the more important you are, the better off you are.
So they're basically
Everything's
human beings as we exist now.
Yes.
Okay.
Like everything's for sale, like even more extreme.
So their defining traits are greed, misogyny, and entrepreneurship. Political system. The Ferengi Alliance was the formal name for the Ferengi government, whose seat of power was on the homeworld of Ferenginar. This alliance was located in the Alpha Quadrant. The government of the Ferengi Alliance was dedicated to the promotion of Ferengi profit and commerce. It was overseen by the Grand Nagus from the Tower of Commerce on Ferenginar. The Nagus's power was derived from both the Ferengi Bill of Opportunities and the Rules of Acquisition. Despite a strong spirit of laissez-faire regarding commerce, the Alliance maintained numerous agencies to regulate Ferengi business and trade. Though ostensibly created to oversee Ferengi business practices and ensure adherence to regulation, these agencies appeared to be constructed as much to create opportunities for graft, bribery, and corruption as any legitimate purpose. Bribery is an open part of the Ferengi system. Regulatory bodies basically just exist to
Facilitate bribes.
Yes, to get bribes. It's probably their way.
It's like a skim scheme where it's
I
like
think it's actually their way of collecting taxes. Honestly,
right.
is to have these
it's out in the
regulatory
open.
bodies that can shut you down.
If you are the
don't bribe
Grand
them.
Nagus, which is basically the leader of the Ferengi, like you can dole out opportunities to make money left and right. It's like, oh, here's a profit opportunity for you because
Yeah.
I like you.
All of the
Or you
stuff
support
that
me.
we would consider unethical in capitalism that still happens anyway just happens very openly in their system.
Right.
Like, if you've got a insider information on a stock, good for you. There's no problem. You bribed a public official.
You
Good.
had to, of course.
That's what you have to do.
How did they presumably when they went out into the stars, they became immediately hated by everybody
Oh, they have a horrible reputation.
because
Yes.
they
they're con
fuck
artists.
with every transaction.
Yes.
So how do they continue? How do people keep doing? Because they're just shrewd enough
They'll
to
work
keep
with
people
anybody.
coming back.
Yeah.
Because they'll work with you no matter what.
Are
And
they
they'll-
the members of any federation, or are they kind of
No.
off on their own thing?
Ferengi Alliance? They don't.
That's it.
They have their own little alliance. They control a little swath of space. I could show you. It's much smaller than obviously these big space empires we were looking at. Where the fuck did it go? Here they are. Right
Okay,
here.
so just a little
Little
blob up
Ferengi
there.
Alliance right there.
Well, they're big facilitators of trade because they
Yeah,
can
look,
go to the Romulans, they can go to the
Every one of these,
Cardassians.
because they're not interested in military adventurism and shit. They'll do business with all this. Everyone here on this map is doing business with the Ferengi Alliance.
Also, because everyone knows their main motivation is just money. Like, we want more money. We don't care. We want more resources.
And their favorite thing, of course, is to find a species that doesn't know about their reputation and to do business with them because
Right.
Well, that seems a huge opportunity to fleece them, basically.
right. They're very exploitative. Philosophy overview. In Ferengi philosophy, the pursuit of profit at any cost was the guiding principle for all traditional Ferengi. With the invention of currency and the concept of profit approximately 10,000 years ago, Ferengi philosophy began to evolve toward the pursuit of material wealth. This guiding principle became so basic to Ferengi that it was eventually codified in the rules of acquisition. Greed, deceit, distrust, and opportunism were highly prized values among Ferengi, and all were represented within the rules. The Ferengi belief in conducting all business dealings under the advisory caveat emptor, or buyer beware, further reflected the pursuit of profit at all costs. Though slavery of men was unknown in Ferengi society, exploitation was the rule. The formation of labor unions was forbidden, and indeed most Ferengi did not wish to eradicate exploitation, but to become the exploiters.
How do they justify the misogyny angle? If a woman Ferengi is able to make profit,
They're not allowed to make profit at all.
I think I have a little thing on that. No, maybe I don't. If profit represented the ultimate goal to Ferengi, the loss of profit opportunity represented the ultimate punishment. Ferengi who broke the law could be punished with the loss of all property and assets. If the crime was deemed severe enough, the offending Ferengi's family could also suffer loss of profit opportunity and could even be sold into indentured servitude to repay their debts, both literal and philosophical. The binding nature of contracts was considered a supreme law in Ferengi society, and breaking a contract with a fellow Ferengi was a severe crime.
Well, I mean, it's obvious why they don't want slavery, because then they have to actually fucking feed and take care of the slaves. It's an investment. It's an investment at that point.
Capital punishment was not unknown among the Ferengi, but perhaps even more feared was the revocation of a Ferengi's business license. Such an action prohibited other Ferengi from conducting business with the offender and virtually ostracized a Ferengi from his own society, leaving him with so few opportunities for true profit that death might have been preferable. Should capital punishment become necessary, such as for going on strike, the preferred method of defenestration is defenestration from the top of the Tower of Commerce. Not only is the 40-story descent effective, but it allows those in the sacred marketplace below opportunities to place wagers on where the condemned will land. Ferengi, I love their theology, by the way. Ferengi's spirituality flowed largely from their belief that the universe was bound together in the great material continuum. A Ferengi who lived a good life, which is defined by them as one who made profit, was said to navigate the great river of the continuum. Such Ferengi were rewarded for their success in interpreting the wants and needs of this life by positioning themselves for success in the next life. In the case of Ferengi, the mercantile belief in the finite but eternal nature of material accumulation meant that you could take it with you. Upon death, a Ferengi found himself before the blessed exchequer to whom Ferengi prayed in life, and was evaluated on the basis of profit earned while alive. A successful Ferengi was allowed to bribe their way into the divine treasury where the wealth they had accumulated could be used to bid on his next life, under the supervision of the celestial auctioneers. An unsuccessful Ferengi might find himself cast into the vault of eternal destitution, never to return.
Damn. Just going to be poor forever.
Basically, got to buy your way into heaven.
Even their religious beliefs are based around profit.
I like how they also sell their desiccated corpses.
Yes. When a Ferengi dies, their body parts are vacuum desiccated and sold on the bodies exchange market. So everything about their culture revolves around profit, capitalism, money. Total antithesis of the Federation's post-capitalist society, although the Federation still does do business with the Ferengi, so they're not entirely post-capitalist in that regard. It's kind of interesting. You asked about the females in their society. I know a little bit about that. Females are not allowed to earn profit. They're not allowed to wear clothes. Women are viewed as property in Ferengi society. They're viewed as creatures who exist to be subservient to males in
or
the
used
society.
by men. Yeah.
Cool thing about Ferengi, too, is that you can make them come by touching their ears, which are very sensitive.
Oh, hey. So they just got their balls and dick basically out.
Dude, they got an ear job, dude. They got ear jobs.
Yeah, they call it umox.
They're lobes.
Dude, give me umocked.
So, what do you think about a purely capitalist society to this extent, where everything is based around accumulation of wealth?
I mean, they're just like pretty much our society on steroids. That's really what it is. It's just like taken to the extreme where literally the only thing that matters. There's no compassion. Like, I remember this episode in Deep Space Nine where they go to like some fucking Ferengi building. And it's like, you want to sit down? It's like, yeah. Oh, it's like 2 credits or something.
It's just funny to me that this, when you give that description of them, you would think that in the show they were presented as bad guys, but really, especially with Quark there, he's constantly saving the day. Not by no fault of his own, but the value of his mindset is constantly being reinforced in the show. So it's almost like subversive that they're there, because on the face of their description, you would think, oh yeah, these are bad guys that'll just fuck you over at any moment. and they're not presented as such. They're presented as very useful, industrious people.
Well, look, they recognize that as businessmen, they're there to facilitate the needs of their customers. Are they trying to exploit their customers? Obviously, they are.
Yeah, but they value their relationship with, say, the Federation.
Not all of the rules of acquisition are like, slit their throat. Like, one of them is like, good customers are as rare as latinum, treasure them. So there's stuff like that. So it's not entirely just like, slit their throats and take their money and do what you got to do and blah, blah, blah. It is a very
they know as any
society.
Well, they know with any good business relationship, it's long lasting. So I mean, yeah, obviously they want to make a profit, but at the same time they recognize like, well, we fuck people in the Federation over enough, they just won't fucking deal with us.
Yeah, so they got to ride that line because they don't want to be so exploitative that someone stops doing business with them, unless it's just a calculated.
Why
risk.
would the Federation, as enlightened as they are, do business at all? Especially because they've ascended to post-capitalism at this point,
right?
With a group of people that are subjugating all women.
There's always times that these groups have existed, and you need them to exist because they're like a go-between thing, and they also can do things that you might not necessarily officially be able to do. So they're using the show as kind of usually like, we can't really do this, but we need someone else to do it.
Yeah, like you know how often these Starfleet captains and shit are like, oh shit, I need to do something that's outside the rules.
Right.
So I need this piece of technology. Where can I get that? I know, the Ferengi. Shit like that. Taking advantage of the black markets. And I'm sure there's also trade between the Federation and the Ferengi. Who knows what sort of resources they're trading. Usually Star Trek is not getting too deep into that sort of thing.
They're definitely an interesting race in the way that they're presented because, like I said, you can tell all of these things are true about them, the self-serving nature, the overarching greed, but they're still presented as useful contributors. And, a race that if they weren't around, things would probably be worse off.
Oh,
so
definitely.
It's interesting the way that they're humanized in a way that maybe like some of the other races aren't.
Well, it's almost like a lot of these races that are portrayed as noble, you can find faults in them. Obviously, they're portrayed as being ignoble, but you can still find some redemptive value in their society in some levels. Although by the end of DS9, it did seem like sort of some more equitable reforms were on the way for Ferengi civilization. Next up is the Cardassians, who I kind of think are pretty similar to the Romulans, honestly, but different enough that they're interesting. And of course, they are a major power in the region here.
Yeah, this is Gul Dukat and
their
Garrick.
attributes: ruthless, xenophobic, which we heard with the Romulans as
very
well.
similar.
Hierarchical, family oriented, and probably my favorite trait of them: conversational. Deeply conversational race. They love to talk. They love to discuss ideas. But they love conversation as almost a game. They like to conceal their
win.
true agenda.
Right?
Yeah.
They like to argue and win.
Yes. And they also like to conceal their true agendas from each other. Even just like family mealtime. We're all going to sit down, but we're going to have a conversation. It's mealtime is as much about the conversation with your family.
And it's basically,
as it is
you
with,
figure out the subtext of what I'm actually saying.
Yeah.
To you and what
Right.
my real
and
power
they
play
just,
is.
have like debates at the family table for fun and stuff.
See, I like that about them. The militaristic side of things is an interesting blend in them because I would think a conversational species, even one based on deception, would be a less warlike, more guile-based species.
Another thing about them is they're very organized and meticulous.
Yes.
That's something that's always...
Extremely, yeah, they're ultimate bureaucrats. They have organization and files and shit down to an art. Political system. The Cardassian Union was formed under a treaty that established a power-sharing agreement between the Cardassian Central Command and the Obsidian Order. The Obsidian Order is kind of their CIA. Friction always existed between the two organizations as the Central Command worked to expand the reaches of the Union and the Obsidian Order worked to suppress it. The civilian Datapa Council was established to serve as a chief governing body between the two branches. However, in practice, the council was virtually powerless, and the Union functioned as a totalitarian military dictatorship.
Like one of the things me and TJ were discussing when we were talking about this episode
So
was
one of the things you were just... Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
it was like we were talking about trials in Cardassian culture.
I actually get in that a little
Okay, you do. So let's just go
So
on.
I'm going to go... Because
ahead, Ben.
Paul was just asking about how did they become a military culture. There actually is
go
an
ahead.
origin story for that. In its ancient history, before Cardassia became a military dictatorship, the Cardassian society was known as the first Habitian civilization. It was home to fine art and beautiful architecture. But the Habitian civilization fell into decay from a lack of natural resources. Millions of Cardassians were starving, and the planet was subjected to utter chaos. Though the Habitian society and way of life eventually became extinct, the remaining Cardassians turned to the military to solve their problems. This began the Cardassian policy of expansion into the Milky Way galaxy to provide the much-needed natural resources to sustain its population. So they were actually once this great artisanal culture, but it fell into decay and disrepair because they just didn't have enough resources on their planet, and that's what turned them to... We have to be militaristic. We have to be expansionist. We have to go steal resources from elsewhere to sustain ourselves.
Which is why,
And that became kind of their model for doing
which
things.
is why when you pick up with the current status of them when you go watch Deep Space Nine is they're leaving Bajor, which is a planet they've occupied for a long time, mining its natural resources for their own.
Right.
The ideal Cardassian life was one of complete loyalty and servitude to the state and to family, although the state comes a little bit more. The Cardassian government was assumed to be omniscient, omnipotent, and benevolent. In a sense, when the Cardassians abandoned their spiritual ways and began their expansion throughout the Alpha Quadrant centuries ago, they simply applied a twisted form of their religion to their political philosophy. A typical example of a Cardassian approach to life was found in their jurisprudence and criminal trials, in which the conclusion was always determined beforehand. The ruling of each case was a guilty verdict. And the purpose of the proceedings was not justice in the human sense, but bringing the offender to recognize the power and benevolence of the state. A trial, therefore, was an opportunity for the state to reveal how someone's guilt was proven by what they considered the most efficient criminal investigation system in the quadrant. So basically, when you go to trial on Cardassia, it's not to determine innocence or guilt. It's not innocent until proven guilty. It's not guilty until proven innocent.
It's basically
guilty until demonstrated guilty in a pageant
it's
designed
almost always
to placate the masses.
The preamble to your execution. It's kind of just like, we're going to publicly shame you, we're going to show you the power of the state, and then you're going to be executed.
Well, no, I mean, like, the whole point of the trial was to bring the criminals into a state of groveling
of course,
to the powers that be and just saying, I was so wrong to betray us, and then getting out their just punishment.
So they're just cutting out the whole trial aspect and focusing all their power on the investigative end of things.
Well, there is a trial, but it's just for show. It's
Right,
just
it's
to
just
show
so
to
that
the
you can
people,
come-
hey,
Right.
the sentences are known in advance.
yeah, the whole thing is just a pageant. Everyone knows
a kangaroo
what's
court,
happening.
you know.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, I'm so sorry I did it. Oh, you better be sorry.
You better be sorry. Now we're going to kill you. Thank you, state. Thank you.
Garrick looks like he's wearing a Girl Scouts uniform.
Maybe he's going to sell Gold Dukat some cookies.
Yeah, dude.
Art, specifically literature and painting, were highly regarded in Cardassian culture. Cardassian literature often reflects Cardassian values such as family, duty, and the glorification of the state. Examples of Cardassian literature include The Never-Ending Sacrifice, an epic tale spanning 7 generations of the history of a Cardassian family which displays selfless obedience to Cardassia. Meditations on a Crimson Shadow, a novel by Prelock set in the future concerning a war between the Cardassian and Klingon empires. And The Enigma Tales of Shoggoth, a series of mysteries in which all of the suspects are guilty, but the trick is figuring out of what.
Oh. Okay.
So
Suspicious people.
yeah.
Oh, completely.
So we have a people here who have a deep appreciation for art, for literature, for conversation, and yet are existent under a totalitarian, militaristic dictatorship, split between 3 different factions of power, only 2 of which
but there's
have
definitely
any real
an
power.
intellectual streak to them. Like you said, like one of their favorite novels is all the characters are guilty, but of what?
Yeah.
So it's like they really like to deduce things. They like to figure things out. They like puzzles.
Yeah, so
The conversation of them and their interactions are all puzzles
they're-
and trying to put everything together and determining what the person's true motivations are.
they're also a very brutal people. If you're captured by them, they'll torture you regardless of whether or not they think you have information. They're just going to torture you for fun.
It's almost like their need to trust something is expressed by this hyper trust in the state. Because they like conversation, and usually conversationalists like that flow of trust. But their conversation seemed based around how untrustworthy can I be? How little can I reveal of my actual self in this conversation? How much can I toy with this person? But all of that skepticism that comes with being somebody like that that's cagey in a conversation goes away when it comes to the state. You're supposed to unquestionably trust the state to be benevolent and omniscient.
Well, to them, the alternative is death. It's like, look, before we tried these other ways, and everyone died, and there wasn't enough shit to go. There wasn't enough resources and food to go around. Do you
It's
want
just
that
another interesting dichotomy in one of these races where it's like we're the most suspicious of all the races, clearly the most guarded. Even though we're openly conversational, we're giving you nothing. But our entire society is based around just unquestioning trust in the powers that be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's kind of interesting. A distrustful race as a whole, and yet a society based entirely around trust of an
Well,
institution.
they have to trust something, and to them, I think trusting an institution is there's more accountability in their eyes.
And plus, they have supreme confidence in their own abilities to create the perfect government,
Well, like you said,
create the perfect
and to them, there's a
system,
lot of fear
create the perfect justice.
of where they came from. They fear going back to poverty. They fear going back to famine. And this system has worked out for them because through expansion, they're able to still progress as a society to some degree.
Yeah, and like Scotty said, I was going to do a segment on the Bajorans, but they really weren't that interesting. And
The space juice.
but they were they're a perfect example of a species persecuted by the Cardassians, who went to their world and strip-mined it and genocided a bunch of people, and basically were just totally brutal in their conquest.
But that's not the way they see it, though.
No.
They're benevolent, actually.
And
in their
but yeah,
eyes.
in their own eyes, they're like, we're benevolent. We're guiding
They're
these
primitive,
people.
yeah.
We're giving them order. They're primitive. They're inferior to us.
They're almost kind of like the evil Vulcans, like we're helping them.
Yeah, we're helping you out. We're showing you the better way to do things, but in reality, they're just totally brutally exploiting you, and everyone knows it but them.
Yeah, they're just more direct about it than the Vulcans are.
That was obviously for another segment. So here's the last race I wanted to discuss in this episode, although there's plenty more we could go over. These are the Borg. Their defining traits: hive-minded, perfectionist, merciless, and of course, they're also defined by their conquests of other civilizations. The most efficient conquerors on this list,
Yeah.
by far. Their political system, they don't really need one.
They're just a collective. The collective makes decisions.
They're part of a collective consciousness. All decisions are made by the collective. However, the Borg Queen plays a not yet totally understood role in ordering the chaos of the collective and the information flowing from its trillions of drones. These are drones, by the way. The collective form of organization allows for tremendous efficiency in actions and deliberations. With each drone functioning separately according to instruction, it could at any time be processing information, performing physical actions, or focusing its energy towards other collective goals. The vast resources thus presented to the collective organization allowed for simultaneous execution of a nearly infinite number of tasks, as well as nearly
it turns all its drones into
calculations.
it's basically its drones are like mini computers. They use the processing power of the organism.
Yeah. This in turn allowed the Borg to consider multiple courses of action before committing to any one course. The best example of this was the Borg ability to adapt nearly instantaneously to any type of attack or threat. By focusing its resources on the threat at hand, all possible outcomes and responses could be explored within an extremely short period of time. The result was that the Borg were able to bring a tremendous amount of force or computational power to bear on any single problem and overwhelm any opposition by sheer volume of numbers. The collective state of organization also greatly decreased the chances of error that exists with the decision-making of individuals or the conflicts of opinion that are factors in hierarchical organizations. One consequence of the collective state noted by Jean-Luc Picard, who had more dealings with the Borg than anyone in the Federation except for Catherine Janeway, was that the Borg were utterly without mercy or compassion. In their totalitarian existence, only the needs of the collective as a whole are considered. And in these utilitarian calculations, the needs of the unrivaled number of Borg would nearly always override any other considerations.
So basically just like a race that has completely obliterated the idea of self.
Yes, they have no sense of self. There's no sense of individuality. There's no vocabulary.
It's not even
of
considered.
I.
No,
One drone is utterly worthless.
It's a totally utilitarian society. It's what is best for the group. That's what we're going to do. That's
Right.
it.
Because the group is all of one consciousness.
And
they share a giant hive mind.
And if you even try to fight against it or think otherwise, it just overrides you.
I
It's
mean,
like,
if you
nope.
have, like, let's say you have a phaser, you could shoot one Borg drone and it'll go down. You shoot another one, it might go down. You shoot another one, they've already adapted to it. Now they know how to
Right.
shield.
Well,
I
also,
remember that
also
from
the
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 show.
Borg the Borg basically probes your ship or whatever. And they say, "Or your world," and it's like, "Can you withstand our attack?" Nope, we're taking you over.
The way that the Borg propagate their species is by assimilating other species. In fact, it should be noted that the Borg are not properly a race. They are a pseudo-species. They're consistent of thousands of different races from all across the cosmos who have been assimilated by the Borg collective. So, there can be a Klingon drone, there could be a human drone, there could be
I don't think
whatever
they ever
species of
they ever
drone.
elucidate what the start of the Borg is. I don't think that's ever.
Yeah, I was
There's
gonna
never
say
been an
there-
exploration of the origins of
I
the
mean, it
Borg.
looks to me like the implication is some transhumanist kind of species
Yes, they're
where
the transhumanist
technology
nightmare.
technology
I guess
just
like basically a singularity.
completely took over. Right, it just replaced what was once a species with now it's just endlessly replicating technology.
They got a little too into those dopamine loops, and
Yep.
now look at them.
I mean,
Damn.
look, dude.
Maybe the Borg are our future.
The
dude.
Borg are, and they're obviously designed from a design perspective to be kind of dreadful to look at. But if you really think about the Borg from a philosophical standpoint, there's a lot of, no, there really is, dude. There really is a whole lot of fucking benefit to the way that they act, dude. They're very insectoid. And if you're gonna tell me that ants are wrong for being ants, then I'm just gonna tell you, fuck you. Ants are gonna,
Paul,
they're
think
gonna
about
rule
this.
this fucking planet when we're gone.
You have like depression and shit. Imagine if you were part of the Borg collective, that'd
That's
be
what I
gone.
mean,
Everything,
like-
every individual impulse or thing that's wrong with you would be corrected.
A person like me that's so at war with himself, the idea of obliterating that self into a mass consciousness that solves all those problems. It's like, I only have the processing power of my own brain to deal with my bullshit. But if I were to plug into the Borg collective, my own bullshit would cease to exist.
To me, they're a lot like the Borg are like the closest, as you would say, solids, like an organism, or what are able to get to the changelings.
And all
Which
this,
have a great link.
Sure.
We'll cover that on Friday. But like that interconnectedness is not really possible for you, right? Like you said, you only have your brain power to process these emotions and deal with the decisions in your life, and maybe you can draw on the experience of others, but you don't have that computational ability to say what's the best path for Paul.
plus there's also this
But at the cost of surrendering your free will, because let's say they want to go do something you don't want to do. You
I
have
don't
to do
believe
it.
in free will anyway. So
Well, if you don't believe in free will, I get you.
handing like that over, it's you also are like, you're not only erasing your problems, but you're contributing to the betterment of everybody
Well, you
else.
don't even
that's
care about
also
your problems.
plugged
Your
in.
problems
Right.
are irrelevant.
Right. So you've just become part of kind of a super organism. And look, all the strife and stuff that goes on between all of these nations, you could look at the Borg as trying to stop that, trying to homogenize and bring balance to the universe.
The Stewie one from our chat says, "Of course, Paul would defend the Borg. Fuck Paul."
I'm not defending the Borg. I'm just trying to think of them from a different perspective other than they're evil robot.
All right,
Like,
so let's hear a little.
I
bit
wouldn't
about
say
the
they're evil. They're
philosophy.
clinical. They're just like, we want this, and this is what we're going to do.
Let's hear about the philosophy of the Borg, because there actually is a philosophy.
Yeah, technological advancement.
The principal philosophy of the Borg collective was a drive towards achieving a state of perfection for themselves and, in their view, all life. The Borg achieved their perfection in several ways, all of which assimilated the individual into the greater hive mind of the collective. The Borg viewed the significant practical benefits conferred by assimilation as both desirable for themselves and the victim species. They seemed to genuinely fail to comprehend what they saw as the narrow-minded resistance shown
So, Paul,
towards
let me ask you,
assimilation
is your
and its attendant loss of individuality.
As you're pointing all this stuff out, if you had a chance to become a Borg, would you?
I mean,
If we could wave a wand and you could be a Borg.
I'm trying to think of what's the actual principal difference between a Borg and a member of the fucking Federation. Like, a member of the Federation is still adherent to these same kind of subversions of the self that the Federation itself gave up on this selfish interest and started acting like a fucking
it's
collective.
Not like
well, they have the same kind of guiding principle, is to go out and assimilate all this knowledge, and hopefully that makes them closer to perfect. It's the same fucking thing that the Borg are chasing.
The best villain is a dark mirror of the hero.
Right.
Of course.
The Borg go around and they assimilate species. They don't view it as we're victimizing you. They view it as
we're perfecting you.
We're making you better.
We're correcting the
We're
flaws.
taking all of the shit and strife and bullshit that you're
resisting.
wasting your time doing, and we're going to make your life better.
You're resisting us because you want to preserve your individuality, but that's only because you're imperfect. Once you're perfect, you're going to see that that was all bullshit. The Borg were essentially amoral, neither wishing to inflict undue pain upon others, nor hesitating to do so when necessary. According to Arturus, whose people have been mostly assimilated, in essence wiped out, the Borg were no more guilty than a force of nature, similar to a hurricane.
So you like the clinical detached
When discussing their
approach,
alliance with the
Paul.
Borg in their war with Species 8472, Chakotay made a similar reference to the amoral nature of the Borg by reciting the story of the scorpion and the fox. He likened the Borg's inability to embrace traditional morals, such as trust, as a mere morally neutral artifact of their nature.
Well, I mean, trust becomes completely fucking...
It's
it's a moot point.
Yeah.
I mean, if you said it to a Borg,
you don't need the trust.
The response would be like, "Hey, when you trust me," they'd be like, "Trust is irrelevant," or "Trust is futile."
Well, because everything that their mind has is laid bare to the collective. It doesn't matter. You don't need to trust somebody.
Right. There's no concept of trust.
Yeah, we don't
anymore.
need trust.
There's no concept of privacy, so why do you need trust?
Right.
I was asked by someone earlier, like, do you think the Borg could ever join the Federation? I'm like, no.
Yeah, they wouldn't.
Their philosophies are incompatible.
Totally incompatible.
I mean, they're incompatible because they're so similar.
Yeah, but
I mean, like, honestly, what's
the devil is in the details.
They're similar in some respects, of course, but they're not identical.
I mean, in terms of the end result and what people want, this is how you should be. Is really the drumbeat of both of these societies.
But I would say, obviously, it's way more optional with the Federation. It's not like, I get your point. Well, at some point, if they have dominance, of course, but
I mean, it's optional to a point. If you're a member of a planet on the United Federations of Planets,
if you're going based on the series, Paul, there is a huge distinction. You can't argue. So you're arguing the Borg and the Federation are the same.
I'm just saying from a philosophical standpoint.
Are they the same?
I'm saying
are they the
from a
same?
philosophical
Are they the same?
standpoint.
Are they the same? Are they the same? Answer the pointed fucking question. Are they the same?
They're similar.
Are they the same?
I never said that they were the same.
Okay,
I said
well,
they were
thank you.
similar.
Well, you pretty much said they were the same.
You're arguing against something I never fucking said.
I'm asking you a question. How am I making a fucking argument? Are you adult?
One of them has a sense of
like,
individuality.
Are they the same is not an argument.
I'm asking you, in your opinion, are they the same?
The implication of what you're saying is that I said they were the same. I said no. I said they're similar.
Paul. Is it okay, Paul? Are they the fucking same thing? Are the Federation and the Borg? Yeah, they have similar
said they
aims.
were?
No, I'm
What's
asking
the point
you.
of the question?
The point of the question, and your answer was no, or was it yes?
It was that they were similar, which was the
They're
point that I was
similar, but
making.
they're not the fucking same.
I wish I had your guys' cam, man.
Yeah, we're just the Dumb and Dumber guys, TJ. We're having a Dumb and Dumber argument over here.
I wish you're fucking. I guess I could turn this one towards
You fucking fucked it up, TJ.
You've lost it. You've destroyed it all, TJ. You fucked it all.
Keep arguing.
If there's one thing we can fucking agree on, is TJ should be assimilated.
Assimilate him now.
Yeah, take his fucking ass now for not fucking.
I mean, look at it. Look at it, dude.
What the
you
fuck?
can't deny that this whole argument wouldn't have happened if we were just Borg.
If we were,
you and I would have
what?
came to instant consensus. There would be no need for all this passionate
You know what?
exchange
I
of
have to
argumentation.
agree with you on that point.
You know what I mean? You and I would have just immediately. There would have been no agreement necessary because the consensus would have been immediate.
Oh yeah.
All right, I have one more
Being
paragraph
Borg is
to get
best,
through
so
here.
we would obviously that would be the end of it.
The dispassion that they show, while in some ways preferable to an enemy who wishes to exact revenge, torture, or pain upon its enemy, nonetheless added to most humanoids' perception of the Borg as a motionless, mechanistic species and added an unsettling quality to them. Though the Borg did not go out of their way to inflict harm or by barbarity, it was not possible to appeal to them for compassion, reason, or other typical humanoid characteristics.
Right, because they don't argue.
They don't. They don't view it as relevant. They're there to assimilate you. You're going to be assimilated. You don't like it? Too bad. You're
They've already run the calculations.
Well, even
and
if
shit.
even if you resist, I mean, you're not going to win.
The math is done. The outcome has been decided already.
Yeah.
The argument is just a vestige of an imperfect species.
As a consequence, by the way, the Borg control a swath of space larger than this entire map combined.
I mean, it makes sense. That
Well, I
they
mean,
would.
they're totally united with their purpose of what they're
Right.
doing. I mean, like that's what I was really more saying about the Federation is the Federation in itself has people that have idealisms.
Well, I
and ha-
actually-
and have scruples where they're like, I actually don't want this to be what the
I
Federation.
actually watched a video.
The Borg don't have that problem.
I watched a video about the Borg that kind of showed how if you look at clues throughout the series, you see that probably their rate of expansion was slow at first, and that they started slowly, just assimilating worlds at a really gradual pace, but that their rate has
Well, they would have had to
exponentially
ramp up to the
increased.
level of power that they're at.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you would imagine that it was very small skirmishes, if any at all, at the beginning, until they got so many overwhelming numbers of individuals assimilated into the collective that they were unstoppable.
And if you look at like certain maps of the Star Trek galaxy, you can see that the Borg stand a realistic chance of actually just assimilating the entire
Everything.
Milky Way at some point. Like they either have to be defeated or you just have to accept that one day I'm going to be a fucking Borg.
I mean,
I mean,
One
that's
day
the
everything's gonna be
transhumanist
Borg.
dream, dude.
I mean, in Voyager, they're sent like 70,000 light years away, and the Borg are there.
Yeah.
I mean, the Borg, and they're also in the Alpha Quadrant. I mean, the Borg's presence is fucking massive.
They have these things called trans-warp conduits that allow them to be anywhere in the galaxy at any time.
so basically, they can
don't
bend
even-
space and time to their fucking
They don't
will.
have to just attack adjacent territories. They can attack anywhere they want.
Nice.
I mean, the Borg are just insane. Well, actually, the Borg do time travel as well. 'Cause remember in First Contact?
Look, any technology that you can think of, the Borg have it because their whole shtick is they're going to go around and steal as much technology and as much biological, diversity as they possibly
So
can.
do you
Well,
think?
not only
Paul,
that, but they're
well,
gonna
Let me ask
port-
you this, Paul.
Okay,
do you
go
think
ahead.
the Federation ultimately would become something like the Borg?
Yes.
You just-
In fact, I think it already is, in a way. Like, look,
But I mean, just as bad as them. Like the ruthless pragmatism of just we keep expanding.
bad is relative to somebody on one of the border areas to here. The United Federation of Planets is the great oppressor. You know what I mean? It's all a matter of perspective.
But I'm saying from within itself.
I mean, I think that it has intentions, which sets it aside from the Borg. The Borg have one intention, which is to assimilate every life
Yeah.
form in the galaxy.
And basically to
And
gain.
to bring it to their vision.
Well, one
of
advantage they
perfection.
have is when they assimilate you is like, let's say you had some cutting edge technology they didn't have. Now we have that.
The
Right.
Borg actually do have.
Not only do they have it, they have the technology, but now they have infinite processing power to pour
Yeah,
over
to
that
use
technology
whatever-
and retro-engineer it and
the
make
Borg
it even better.
actually do have something of a religion, by the way.
Really?
They actually do have something that they consider sacred. It's called the Omega particle. It's extremely volatile, but they consider it to be an expression of perfection.
I see.
Like one particle of it is so powerful that it can actually make warp drive impossible in like huge swaths of space. But if it could be harnessed, it would be a source of near infinite power for any species that was able to obtain it. And they view it with an almost religious reverence. So they do have something of a theology. It's a very basic
They almost
one, but-
like worship like an infinite source of energy,
Yes.
essentially.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they need essentially to run a Borg ship and everything. They need energy.
It would be fun to speculate about the beginnings of the Borg and how
there's
it all
a few
started.
different theories, one of which is the one you posited earlier, that it was a
Transhumanism.
transhumanist society that eventually just totally ceded individuality and then became this thing that was
Right.
going to expand, against people's wishes. Another idea was that the Borg started off as a purely technological species, something like akin to Data maybe, that started to take over human bodies or, whatever, some sort of humanoid species bodies.
That's actually a pretty interesting theory. So basically technology takes over organic organisms.
Yeah. So there's a few different ideas out there like that. I've always thought more along the lines of where Paul's mind is at. Some people, just becoming more and more reliant on you could see a trajectory even from the technologies we have now. Oh yeah, it's so great. We're getting more and more interconnected. We got the internet, and we got the phones, and now you put a chip in your head, now you see the display in front of you, and it's like projected in your mind's eye and shit. And you just do what you want
augmented
there.
reality. You can see the trajectory
but
for
isn't
sure.
that kind of we especially talked about this on the Elon Musk episode of Joe Rogan about the Neuralink stuff. It's like, look, it's just the fact that the interface you're using, you're having to input this information with your hands and your mind and think about it. And it's like, imagine if you have something like the Borg Collective where you could just think any thought you want to. Like Paul's like, I want to do this or write this script or go here. And he can just start focusing all his computational power plus aided with technology to do whatever he wants to do to achieve his aims.
Yeah, but
he's going to augment himself so vastly that at some point people are going to be so attracted to that ability to do that.
But the only way for me to do that would be to instantly collaborate with people via a neural link like they were talking about, which subverts the idea of self. As soon as that happens, you can give away your individuality. There's no privacy.
And people will, of
course.
There's
and they will. So I see the Federation of Planets in this story arc being, they're just trying a different angle on on domination. They're going for the political angle, the cultural assimilation angle. We are going to radiate such awesome vibes that everybody's going to want to be us eventually.
So in Civ, you're saying they're going for cultural victory,
right?
Whereas
the Borg are just skipping all of that and going for the direct domination victory. We're going to assimilate so many of you that there are going to be more of us than there are you forever.
And it won't matter. Honestly, if you ever think about the calculations they're doing, they probably have calculated how many life forms they need to assimilate to basically just rule the entire
of course.
universe.
One of the things that fascinates me so much about these Star Trek species is, of course, these are all inventions of the human imagination. And you can kind of see them all
they're not real?
as being... Yeah. You can kind of see them all as being sort of reflections of different aspects of human nature.
Sure.
Because there's nothing in any of these species that's truly alien to us.
No.
We understand collectivism. There's been collectivism. This is just collectivism on steroids. We understand what greed and capitalism are. The Ferengi are just greed and capitalism
personified,
on steroids,
right?
Almost to the point of caricature. We understand military dictatorships. We understand
guile.
Warriors, and we understand Machiavellianness, and we understand all these
we
things.
We understand the places for all these things. Is what you're saying. So there's something that human about each one of these species or cultures that we can resonate with in ourselves.
Right, and it's kind of interesting to see, what if we took what if we isolated this one character trait and took it to an extreme, basically, is kind of the interesting thought experiment that Star Trek does.
Does Star Trek ever address the fact that we all have obviously some sort of common ancestor out there in the galaxy?
It does, actually.
Okay.
It does.
Because the whole bipedal humanoid form just expresses itself too many times to ignore.
Not trillions, but billions of years ago, aliens seed.
There was an episode where one of the first humanoid organisms to evolve in the cosmos found that it was alone in the universe, or at least in the galaxy, and seeded its genetic material across the cosmos.
So almost kind of like
panspermia.
Yes.
Kind of like the engineers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Kind of like the engineers from Aliens. Yeah.
Got it.
And so that was it was kind of explained away with that. There are plenty of non-humanoid species in Star Trek, but of course it's harder to depict that because
I think they're mostly seen on
you can't just throw some ridges on someone's forehead and say, "Look, it's an alien."
Well, yeah, right. I think they're kind of more of those in Voyager, and it's like the Next Generation. Remember that thing that kills
the
Tasha,
Shellyak, who you talked about?
Oh, the Shellyak, yeah.
With me was they were a non-human.
Remember that
race.
malevolent entity they find on that planet, though?
Yeah.
That's obviously not.
What about that thing the Darmok or whatever?
Yeah.
Oh.
Remember that the storyteller guy?
Darmok was the name of the mythological figure they were referencing.
Oh,
yeah,
well, what was the thing that the storyteller had to tell the story, or it would kill the village?
I forget. It was just called like the beast or the monster or something.
The guys tell the story to keep the thing away. Yeah.
You're talking. Oh, I know what you're talking about. I'm thinking of a totally different episode. Sorry. I don't know. There was some kind of big stupid.
I know you're talking about like the Jarmok
energy beast or some shit.
Yeah.
So there's clearly non-humanoid shit out there.
Oh yeah. They encounter a lot of weird shit that's not humanoid throughout.
There was a crystalline entity, the fucking giant
Oh,
floating space crystal. There's that weird, like, jellyfish thing.
I mean, that's really ultimately, though, that's what Star Trek is about. That's why it resonates with people, right? It's not about all these crazy aliens. It's about us coming to terms with our own fucking differences.
Yeah.
And all the different aspects of humanity.
A lot of Star Trek is about diplomacy, about solving interpersonal disputes, about finding common ground with people who seem like you could never find
a lot of them
it
are
with.
made with the issues of the time in mind. You know, it's not like it was totally unaware of what was going on in the 60s. I mean, like, the first, what was it? The first interracial kiss on television was on Star Trek.
I mean, there was episodes that addressed racism and xenophobia and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, the Drumhead is a great episode.
Yeah.
You know, basically the talk.
The trial, yeah.
Yeah, the trial where it's like, you know, just these witch hunts.
Yeah, it was all about witch hunts and people being convicted of crimes based on insinuations and shoddy evidence and
basically guilty
having
until
the
proven
wrong
innocent.
Bloodline and shit. So I mean, Star Trek's always dealt with that kind of stuff really well. But I think the reason that these species are all sort of like images of certain parts of the human psyche, I think, is to just explore that stuff even more. You know, have a good template like, hey, we're going to talk to this race of people who are just completely unreasonable by our standards, but somehow we're going to work it out.
Well, it also
Just come to some kind of resolution.
It gives humanity something too to look at and say, like, how the contemporary time you live in, how will it be remembered in the future? This is just like an idea of what the future could possibly be. I mean, it's probably not going to be this, but it's an idea.
It's pretty. Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't think we're gonna go into space and find that there's a bunch of humanoids that are super reflective of what we are.
Of course not.
We're probably gonna find that aliens are somewhat alien, but who knows? You know, maybe life follows a similar pattern all over the universe. There's no way of knowing.
Yeah, we don't know.
But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for the people who super chatted, even though that's not really like a huge part of the show or anything.
If you want to deep dive into some of the races that we didn't get to cover, tune into the Friday show, become a patron. There's no better time than now. We're going to take a look at some of the races we didn't get to.
What kind of races are you going to cover in your episode, Sky? I know you're going to do the Q and the
changelings,
and all the
trills,
Dominion species and shit.
The Vorta. There's going to be a lot of different species. I feel that probably supplement this episode more than anything.
All right.
Cool.
So thank you guys for watching.
Guys.
We appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Seems like you did from what I was glancing at the chat, so that's good. And please become members of. Let's see if it went up. Let's see. Did it go up? Did it go up? Did it go up? Did it go up? Nope.
No.
Still the same.
Oh,
Wow, you guys
what's
suck.
up with that shit?
Come on, guys.
2 more.
Get over there.
Just
Two
get
more.
it up to 3,700, man. Get it up to 3,700. All right, we love you guys. Peace the fuck out.
Good night.
See you next time.
Have a
Bye.
good one.